Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it Epcot. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, the official podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. This is episode 98, The Disney Difference, where we'll be taking you back to all those different things that Disney does and Disney used to do that provide a unique experience to all its guests and visitors. I am your host, Todd McCartney, and sitting in with me always on this recording on this lovely, cool evening here in the spring, Mr. Hal Bowers coming in from Florida. How you doing tonight, Hal?
Aloha, I'm doing well.
Good.
I'm excited. We're finally down at the permit office getting permits done, so we're going to start reconstruction on the house.
Good to hear. Good to hear. You'll be back in your home office before you know it.
Yep.
So, and coming in from the room with Gertie behind him, Mr. JT Kuzier. You got your ornaments up there. Do you have your new 3D one up there yet? No?
Which one's the new? That 3D one. That's up on my dresser, actually. That's all right, just sitting up there. I think that's by the goat and maybe a pack of stickers.
Okay.
I've got such I feel like what's the word? Limited edition collection here. I feel like if somebody has the right offer, I mean, I'd be willing to give you a once in a lifetime opportunity here because we
to collect them all at once, huh?
Oh, yeah, whatever. I mean, I've got a lot of good ones here that some people really want. But yeah, I'm excited about the Disney difference. I got some ideas and some things to bring up. So I got some problems I need to talk about.
All right, we'll try to get them taken care of. And as always, from Philadelphia, Brian P. Miles. How you doing tonight, Brian?
Greetings and salutations. And the pool opens tomorrow. Despite the fact that it'll be 62 and overcast, you know where to find me tomorrow afternoon.
There you go. Yeah,
and for the rest of the summer,
it's been pretty cool. So it's not cool and not in a good way, not a fashionable cool, a cold cool. So there we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get to our main topic, as always, JT, I think we have some listener mail. Is that correct?
Here we go. Mailbag. And the first one, we have an event coming up called Retro. No, I'm just kidding. The first one is from Wilson. Wilson says, during the most recent music episodes, you were just discussing John Tesh, and it reminded me of our John Tesh Disney experience.
I love this.
My John Tesh knowledge is Entertainment Tonight.
Hello again, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Entertainment Tonight. I'm Mary Hart.
And I'm John Tesh.
And he did the NBA on NBC song, which is just a banger of a thing for him. It's great. So anyways, Wilson and his wife got married in 1998. And of course, we did the standard Disney honeymoon. On our first day, we went to the Magic Kingdom and they were filming the TLC show Wedding of a Lifetime. Despite having spent the previous day at our own wedding, my wife wanted to stop and watch. That sounds about right. You just want to compare. Where they had observation areas placed us behind a guy at a piano and the singer. We remarked about how amazing the guy was singing and also laughed about how over the top the piano player was. He was overly dramatic, playing Beauty and the Beast, and we laughed at how funny it looked from behind. When the show aired, my wife taped it, and as we watched it back, we found out the music was performed by Peebo Bryson and John Tesh. Somehow seeing it was John Tesh showing out made it even funnier to us. So that's great.
What a combo. Who put those two bills together?
Well, I mean, I have the same connection to John. I don't remember the NBA part because that wouldn't have been my connection. But Entertainment Tonight is where I knew him from, and he also endless infomercials, or not infomercials, but the commercials for the send away albums that you could get, where it was 1 or 2 minute commercials that they would run on cable. John Tesh did like soft rock cover albums.
Hi, this is John Tesh, and I put together a collection of my music designed to help you live a passionate life.
Where he would do things, because he is a skilled pianist, and he would do things like Beauty and the Beast, and it was always John Tesh love songs. Just my recollection, like he wasn't rocking out like Michael Bolton's Love is a Wonderful Thing or anything like that.
He hosted some radio shows too, didn't he? Like on XM radio or something?
He had his own, didn't he have his own top 40?
Yeah.
That competed with Casey Kasem, I think.
Possibly,
he had a top 40 countdown show maybe or something like that. But I am sure there's 4 or 5 Tesh heads out there in the audience that are going to educate us on all the parts of John Tesh we're not familiar with.
Boy, that's something we lost to the internet and to iPhones is the old collaboration CD on TV, Monsters of Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, man, is that Freedom Rock? Yeah, man. Well, turn it up, man.
100 of the classic ballads of all time performed by the original artists.
They scroll the song names, and then, of course, at the end it always says, and many more.
And many more. There was always clips. The Time Life Treasury of country music, Christmas music, the Time Life Treasury of the 50s collection, the 60s collection, sock hop rock. We
lost the nature CDs at Target where you'd walk up and push the button to hear the sounds you wanted to test.
Yeah.
It's all gone now to an app. All right. Well, thanks, Wilson. We appreciate that. If you're a John Tesh fan, let us know. Aiden is up next. Hey, guys, longtime listener here. He recently visited Epcot Center and had a pretty wild experience, an actual evacuation on Spaceship Earth.
Oh, yes.
While I'm reading this, I don't remember our episode where we talked about our experience, but maybe we can plug that here as we go through this. He says, we stopped at the turn of the century printing press scene, right where the newspaper boy is shouting. How does a very good impression of this? Go right ahead.
Extra New York Daily. Well, now he says something different, though.
Yeah.
Now he says Civil War over.
Yeah. He says, and let me tell you, we got to hear that on a loop for a solid 20 minutes.
Oh.
He says, you can imagine how unpleasant that was. At first, they kept announcing the ride would resume momentarily, but eventually we were told to remain seated. And a cast member came over, said they'd be walking out. They alluded to an issue with the ride itself. They couldn't get it going. And it had me wondering if it was the super old track that they had been saying that needed replaced. I've been going to Disney since I was born. Even though I used to dream of walking through Spaceship Earth, I never actually thought I'd experience this. While we were going through, we walked past the Renaissance scene with Michelangelo in the room with the repurposed Carousel of Progress of father and daughter. It was so cool. Naturally, I took a bunch of pictures, which he shared with us. From there, we exited through a door, headed down a ton of stairs and winding hallway, and came out near the side of the building, almost near guest relations. It was an awesome experience, but left me super curious. You guys know of a floor plan or schematic of Spaceship Earth? I'd love to see the visual map of where we were. As someone who's pretty spatially aware is completely disoriented in the backstage hallways with no point of reference. I know it does do like kind of a corkscrewy type effect.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I actually sent him a layout showing like which foot levels.
Oh, good.
He went from, and it's amazing. It's like it was really a difference of like a 40 feet. But it's really cool when you look at the cutaway of Spaceship Earth. That whole section is right about dead center of the orb. So it's really interesting.
It's amazing how disorienting you are when you're in there too. You don't realize how many times you've gone around and where you are,
right?
And what's on top of what. Remember when we walked it after Epcot's 35th? It was mind-boggling how much crap they were able to squeeze into such a tight and odd space.
Hal and I had a funny experience when we were there a few months ago and went through the line, and we were chatting up the cast members and telling them about the cold water fountain up on the 5th floor. And the cast members that were working the line said, well, we're not allowed up there. Like we're not allowed up there anymore. We're not allowed to get off up there. I forget why they said, but they were not allowed up to remember that 5th floor bathroom that they're not allowed to use, but it had the water fountain out front that's really, really cold.
And because it's what was it? It was they're
afraid that somebody going through the telegraph scene would hear the toilet flushing, so in
the caveman
they're not allowed to use that toilet. There's a caveman scene.
There's a caveman scene. Yeah.
Well,
the caveman scene have running water?
But if I recall too, that little room was only accessible by the elevator, which if you're in the line, like walking up to where you go through the queue, you turn around, it's that mirrored looking cylinder.
Column,
And those are big doors that open. You can actually almost see the hinges, and then
sometimes you see it open. I mean, because they do
I've never seen
have people. Yeah, there are occasionally needs for maintenance or cast to go up the elevator. So every now and then you'll see somebody walk through that door.
I don't know if you guys took note, but I was an official employee for a moment on that tour. They did tell us we were, because we gave
right. To get to walk it.
Yeah, they had.
Mm-hmm.
I got to put in for my gold pass so that I can go to the park forever.
All right. Well, thank you, Aiden. Glad that experience was fun. And it's that's definitely a neat walk-off. If you have a cool walk-off story, be sure to share it with us because those are always fun to hear. Next up is Joe. Joe says he loves our content. He's looking through our vintage pictures and videos. He's been searching forever for old pics of the Tambu Lounge in the Polynesian. He searched high and low, and I'm only able to see pictures of it in recent times. I love that place, but I'd love to see its origins. Do we have any that we could share or post?
And I have, the Tambu is one of those amazing places that it seems like no one ever took pictures of in its original incarnation. I mean, I'm sure it's out there. We haven't personally gotten it yet.
Yeah. Bars are not a place a lot of people would take their film cameras to or want to capture unless it was a birthday or retirement type of deal. And usually then that's just pictures of people at a table or something. So it's not frequent in all of the years that I've scanned our 14, 15, 16, however many thousands of slides.
I think we have like 2 pictures from the Coquina Cove that out of all of it. And I'm always looking for pictures of that for 2 reasons. One is there was a really nice painting that used to be behind the bar, which got moved out from the bar and is now in a private collection. So it'd be really cool to see a picture of it in the bar in its original location. And the other thing is there are all these promos for Raymond Bueno playing the piano in the Tambu Lounge. And I would love to see a picture of Raymond tickling the ivories just to see what that was like.
We might be able to get you John Tesh playing in the Tambu Lounge. Something faster.
Very flamboyantly with Peebo Bryson.
Yeah, the NBA theme song. All right. Well, cool. Joe, we will, hopefully a listener maybe has one or something. And if you have it and you have not scanned it or you would like it professionally restored, let us know of those Tambu Lounge photos. We can definitely take a look at that. Final message here is from Pam. Pam says, hello, gentlemen. I listened to this episode about the cameras and films start to finish. Loved it. She remembers her dad having a camera around the World's Fair in 1964, 1965 that popped out a picture and you had to cover it very carefully with a wand that smelled very bad and you had to let it dry. Interestingly enough, there weren't many pictures taken by him after this. My mom then had some kind of Instamatic. I don't know what kind of camera that was, but the wand that smelled bad sounds very interesting. I'm sure we could get something on that, but that's a crazy story. And I'm guessing a lot of bad pictures were taken that didn't develop or process correctly without the wand in a perfect place in the 60s. But all right. Well, thanks, Pam. Appreciate all the messages. If you have something you'd like to share with us, a memory, a story, or even a question, write us, podcast@retrowdw.com. We try to respond to every message. Some end up on the show, and hopefully if you send us a fun one, we will get it on the next episode.
All right. Thanks for that, JT. Appreciate you putting that together as always. So it is time for our main topic. As we said at the top of the show, this is the Disney difference, where we'll be talking about those things that are made Disney a little bit different years ago and maybe even today still, and things that we've lost, things that we've gained. And Brian, you've been putting together some things. I know for a few months we've had this Slack channel going. Everybody's been throwing ideas and thoughts in there. And
yeah,
I was down there a few weeks ago and I was upset about something. I'm like, this isn't here anymore. And I grumpily put it in there. But
I have those things listed, Todd.
Okay,
so you can mention them if you want to.
Yeah.
But a couple of things. The origin of this is not a, old man yells at cloud out the door episode. That's not what we're doing here. The origins of this episode actually are after we did the episode on the Sunbank that was in the parks and Sunbank's partnership with Disney and the banking on Disney properties. We started to get a lot of emails from people, not only talking about their experience with Sunbank, but other things that they used to either, our conclusion on Sunbank was that back then they needed to be in the parks because the parks ran on cash and, people didn't carry around multiple credit cards or even a credit card in a lot of cases. So there was a need to have a place where you could go to get cash, to get money wired to you, to, take cash advances and things like that, and do normal banking, convert foreign currency and those types of things. And really these days those services aren't needed anymore because of the preeminence of credit cards and the availability of debit cards and ATM machines. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight are things that used to be in the parks and resorts that aren't there anymore because they've outlived their usefulness, because they're experiences that either are no longer necessary or don't really jive with the consumer these days. So I thought a great place to start when we started this conversation, Hal Bowers actually described what it was like if you were staying at the Polynesian or the Contemporary in 1971, what it was like to arrive to the resort. And that's a great place for us to start because I thought we would start in the resorts.
we're not going to talk about the full meal that we got on the airplane, though, right? That it was with the wide seats.
The full meal and the wide seats and the airplane ticket that was federally regulated on a route that was awarded and cost your dad like $1,100 to fly you to.
And you smelled of nicotine when you got off the plane. So
I mean, there's the romanticized version of things were so much nicer, and then there's and it cost what a first class ticket costs now is less than what people paid for a coach ticket,
right,
in adjusted dollars back then. So
it's not all fancy.
We have gone over that 100 years ago on one of these episodes, but there's always perspective to add to those things. That's why so many people drove, because flying was really expensive and not something that John Q. Public really did.
That's right.
Certainly not with his kids.
In Ted Linhart's, and his documents, there's actually a training document that I found from the hotels, and this section just fascinated me because, today we're used to you pull up to the hotel, you get out of the car, someone from the valet parking service probably comes up to you and asks you, valet or are you going to valet? Are you going to, self-park? You go in and do your stuff. But what they did in 1971 was just, to me, mind-blowing, because you would pull up to the security gate, where you'd pay your ticket, pay to go park. So, they're in the old days, actually, if you've only been to the parks in the last 2 years now, you don't even go through this anymore because you completely bypass the parking ticket things.
Oh, yeah, that's right. With the flyovers and everything, it's not even a thing.
So you used to go up to the parking lot thing here, and you would go to the right-hand side. There were 2 stalls on the right-hand side that were for you if you were going to one of the resort hotels. So you would pull up to that. They would ask you who you were, and you'd give them your name and, probably talk about your hotel reservations. And then they would take a radio walkie-talkie, a powerful one, and actually walkie-talkie to the resort to tell them that you were coming. So that way, when you pulled your car around and you pulled up to the porte cochere, there would be a representative from the hotel standing there with your whole hotel packet, with all your info in it, and they would meet you at your car and lead you inside and go over all of the things that you needed to sign and do. I mean, it was literally personalized service from the moment that you walked in.
And you felt like a baller.
Yeah, you're not standing in line 20 people deep or trying to do an app in order to check in. It's like there was literally a person assigned to you to get you into your hotel room.
Do you guys remember how they guided you to the hotel?
Oh, the stripe on the ground.
The stripe on the ground, right? Epcot, I think until recently, I don't know if it's still there, but they would say, follow the, I think it was, if I recall, it was blue to the Contemporary.
They still do it with disability parking.
Okay.
There's still striping on the ground that leads you to in your lane to where you should go for disability parking.
So pre-GPS, how do I get to the Contemporary now that I've, my map, we've been on the road for 36 hours, I'm weary, and they would just say, follow the blue line to the Contemporary. And if I recall, Polynesian was either yellow or green, and maybe Disneyland was yellow. I can't remember. But and you would follow. And how it's funny, because that was a Disney difference trick that people started to use, right? To not pay Magic Kingdom parking, you go to the far right lane. Because later on it was, we're not radioing. We're not doing that anymore. I'm sorry. We're not telling them that they're coming. They know you're coming at some point today. And they wouldn't radio in, and you should be like, oh, I'm checking in. All right, go ahead. And you wouldn't pay parking, and you could go around the back way. And so,
yeah, you'd save $2.75.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So it's interesting because this is one of those things where, what we're talking about, I guess, is the check-in process. So I guess that's where we'll start. Yeah. Where, it had this amazingly efficient experience in the early decades of the parks and resorts. And then during those go-go growth years of the 90s, when they kept building new hotels every year, that changed. One of the things that's imprinted on me is getting, you've done the trip to the airport, you've flown down, you've collected your luggage. We almost always rented a car or drove down back then. So you get to the hotel, you walk in. Now, two things are operative here. One, it was not uncommon back then. If you got in at 10 or 11 in the morning, if you left on a 5 a.m. flight or something like that, it was not uncommon for Disney to have a room ready for you. In fact, it was like a real benefit back then. Like, you'd get there kind of bedraggled. You just want to put your luggage in the room,
turn some AC
freshen
on.
up a bit, and maybe go to a park. And I would say 8 out of 10 times when you showed up, there was usually a room ready for you. There was a 4:00 check-in, but very often, or they would tell you, give us a half an hour, and you were fine, because usually it was a handful of minutes and somebody would come out and say, oh, Mr. McCartney, your room's ready. Come on over and we'll get you set up. Great. And the second piece of that is what I remember from the latter half of the 90s and certainly the 2000s was showing up to these gigantic lines at check-in.
Oh, yeah.
Where you'd finish all that and you'd walk in and there'd be 30 families in line waiting to get to one of the 10 attendants there checking in people that day at the hotel.
But let's admit, checking in was a shit process back then too, right?
It was laborious. They were pleasant about it. I mean, the whole thing of the Disney, you were dealing with happy cast members who bent over backwards to help you. But at the same time, you'd still show up. And if there's 20 people in front of you, there is no jumping to the front of the line. Right. You were waiting.
You wait. Kids are sweaty. Everybody's hot.
Yeah. So I will say that, let's go 55 years in the future or 54 years in the future. The mobile check-in now has kind of recreated that, radioing ahead experience, because I will tell you, it is wonderful. I mean, we just did it a couple weeks ago when I was there checking into Wilderness Lodge, and that morning, although sometimes you can do it before, I had filled everything out before that. And they give you like, when do you expect to get here? And your options are like 4:30, 5:30, 6, or then just before 4 p.m. is the option. It's not like you can tell them, hey, I'm going to be there at 11. And I could probably scroll through my phone and look, but I think I got notification that our room was right. We were in the park at that point, but I think it was 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. Our room at the Wilderness Lodge was ready, and we didn't have to stop at the front. We did stop at the front desk because we wanted to get actual room keys, the cards they give you, and go over a couple of things. We needed to check some luggage, actually, was what we needed to do.
I will say it did work really well. In fact, my last visit to the Polynesian a few weeks ago, we got Pago Pago, and I was like, hey, that's right next to the parking lot.
Yeah, you just go right to your room.
I pulled 3 feet from the door, dropped our stuff off, wheeled it in the room. All was done. It was great.
So as much as I will gripe about technology in the parks, I don't mind technology in the resorts as much. I like mobile ordering my food from quick service. I like mobile ordering my food from quick service in the parks now. Just knowing that I can put that order in without waiting in line, and I'll just kind of get notification when it's ready. That's really convenient at the resorts too, because in the mornings, if you do that, it can be a 20, 25 minute wait sometimes for your breakfast if you're grabbing stuff to take back up to the room.
You know what's amazing too? I've been in the parks and using mobile ordering at Cosmic Rays, and the line is huge. And I stand there watching the huge line. I order it. The line hasn't moved, but I've got my food.
Yeah, you got your food in 3 minutes, Here's your stale pretzel and your giant hot dog and your soda with no lid or straw. There's your first old man moment. And I do not have lids or straws on the list, but it should be. So
I want to taste the wax in the wax cup like I used to in the 70s.
Absolutely. With the logo of whatever sponsor paid for it.
That's the one. That's
so. Let's talk a little bit about the hotel services and experiences that we lost along the way or have changed.
I'm a little hungry. So what happens?
Well, no, food service comes later.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're going to eat the food service and room service and all that later. It's a separate category. But I will tell you, I was just, as I told you, it was at Disney World a couple weeks ago. But before that, for a few nights, I got my first opportunity to stay at the Breakers in Palm Beach. Which is one of the nicest hotels in the world. It's an old, the Age of Empire, the Gilded Age Hotel on the beach in Palm Beach. And it's massive, and it's everything in it is as first class as you can possibly imagine. And one day after breakfast, we were exploring the resort, just kind of walking the grounds. And in this little tiny tucked away place, there was a barber pole. So I opened the door, and in it, I'll make the story fairly short, but there was an 88-year-old man reading the newspaper. He didn't look like he was 88 years old. Reading the newspaper, watching The Price is Right. I wanted to say it was on a tube TV, but that's probably not accurate.
That's how we remember it, Brian.
That might be me. That might be me misremembering. I do have pictures of it. But I just opened the door, and he was sitting there, and it was a classic old barber shop. And I struck up a conversation with him. My friend was with me. And after a minute, I said, well, I feel like I would be missing out on the experience if I didn't, get my hair cleaned up while I'm here. So he said, sit in the chair. And, I had a nice 15 minute trim job there, and hot lather and a straight razor on the back of my neck and the whole bit. And I got up and I said, after some more pleasantries and taking some pictures together, I said, how much do I owe you for the haircut? And he said, 15. And I said, oh, 15? And he said, no, 50. And I realized I'm at the Breakers, and this guy's got to make his rent. He's 88 years old. I wasn't going to argue on the price, but for you ladies out there who I know pay a lot of money at the salons, $50 is a lot for a haircut for a guy at a barbershop. But up here it's 20. Plus a tip. So I paid him, and I only had $20 bills beyond the $50 bill that I had. So I wanted to tip him. So I got a $70 trim. But that experience you used to be able to get at both the Contemporary and the Polynesian when the resorts opened. There was a barber shop at the Polynesian. I've shared before the picture inside of the barber. Somebody listening to this, one of the old timers, they all Manny or whatever the guy's name. Oh, I was so and so. He had the barber shop at the Polynesian. And there was one at the Contemporary as well, and a salon, a beauty salon in both places as well. So that's something that used to be in the resorts that was not there. I also want to note that in the room guides back in the 70s, under shoe shines, they said, go to the barbershop. And the barbershop would also handle shining your dress shoes if you needed your shoes shined up.
We got a haircut for, I think, Kieran at the Grand Floridian in the 2000s, and I don't think the salon is there anymore either.
Where was it?
It was in the main lobby upstairs on the second floor.
On the second floor, it was over on the one side, and they had a name like Scissors and Sales or something like that. Like it had a theme name, and there were the Contemporary absolutely had a salon into the 2000s. When it went away, I'm not sure. I didn't care enough to actually get closing dates on some of these, but that information's out there. I want to say, I know Yacht and Beach had a spa, which is not on my list, that closed for COVID and then has never reopened. So the only operating spa now is at the Grand Floridian. And I'm not even sure if that one reopened. I think it did, but they did have where you could go in and get your massage and your hair treatment. That the Swan and Dolphin have all of this stuff, by the way. Swan and Dolphin still has a salon and a spa and all that. But I will tell you, I also remember they imploded the Tropicana in Las Vegas this past year because they're building the baseball stadium there, right? Isn't it football or baseball? I forget that they're building a stadium
for the
there.
Oakland A's, if that's what you're referring to.
There you go. That is what I'm referring to. So that's going to be built on the site of, I believe, where the Tropicana was just imploded. And I stayed at the Tropicana before its prior renovation, and it was pretty dated at that point. And we were out there in the winter, so it wasn't a particularly crowded time. But wandering around that resort, kind of between the hotel and the convention center, same experience. I walked by and saw a barber pole and the barber shop, and the guy had been cutting hair in there since the 60s. And I went in there, and I remember I got a straight razor shave for $25. And one of the things you should know about me is about every 5 to 7 years, I will go somewhere and see that they have straight razor shaves. And yes, I will pay for a hot lather straight razor shave just to remind myself after I pay $30 or $40, I don't particularly care for straight razor shaves. The idea of a straight razor shave is great. The actual experience is never oh boy, this is like a spa for my face experience that I think it is going to be, because a man's taking sharpened steel
right to
and
your
just
jugular.
scraping your face.
Yeah.
They're just putting hot and cold stuff on there and all. I wish I could say you walk out of there feeling great. I mean, I feel clean shaven, but I can do that myself at home in the shower for 3 minutes. So
one false move and you're like, it's murder.
That's right. Any other barbershop or salon experiences you guys want to share in hotels before I move on?
Can't think of any that I've had.
So here's another thing that I remember these being on cruise ships too, but that was common in higher end hotels, and Disney had them too. There was a florist. There was a place you could go to buy flowers for your amour or your special person celebrating a big day. You would go to the floral shop or call the floral department and order a special bouquet delivered to the room. Maybe you and the wife had some words at dinner and you wanted to make up. You could have a dozen red roses delivered to the room. That was common and something that, it has from the cruise ships and everything else. It's like those services are available, but they don't have a shop anymore. The first cruises I went on, the Carnival cruises that was out of Tampa, there was a floral shop that was open right next to the formal wear shop, neither of which are on the ships anymore. But yeah, they had a floral shop, and Disney does still have floral services. So you can order custom baskets and gifts. It had morphed over the years. But as the shops themselves in the hotels disappeared, it was something you would call an order, and there was even an online catalog. There probably still is now, that you can have like the room decorated for birthdays and all. You've walked past Disney hotel rooms that have been decorated like that, and it's not like it's done professionally. So time all runs together. Sometime before the pandemic or shortly thereafter, as things started to reopen, Disney laid off all of its floral department employees, and it's all subcontracted now. Because there are fresh flowers in the lobbies of some of the nicer resorts down there. I mean, I don't think Pop Century's getting fresh flowers in the lobby, but I know the Grand Floridian, the Polynesian, there's some arrangements there. The Contemporary in the lobby, by check-in, there are fresh flowers and stuff, and then they do other things for some of the restaurants and things like that. But that is all farmed out now. It's done by a third party. So you could have stopped down and gone to the florist and gotten a boutonniere, to impress Mickey when you met him in the Magic Kingdom with your wilted flower on your...
Meet me on Main Street. I'll be the one with the carnation standing outside of the ice cream parlor.
You'll want to meet a man in a trench coat with a pink carnation sticking out of his hat. He'll be your contact. We did talk about currency exchange extensively in our Sun Bank episode.
Yep.
It was an advertised feature in the room guides in the 70s and 80s and so let me describe room guides, because some of you may not be old enough to know. When you used to go to your hotel room, there would be a booklet in there, usually a 3-ring binder of some sort, that would have a list, of the restaurants and all the available services in the hotel, the hours for the pools, who to call if you had a prescription emergency or needed medical attention, or all of those things would be in the book.
I remember as a kid checking into hotels, whether it's Disney or not. Boy, that was like amazing to sit down and look at.
It was great. Before you had a phone, it was a great thing to take to the bathroom with you.
Exactly. What am I going to do?
You had something to read.
Exactly. What can I do? What am I going to get out of this?
Like, hey, they have horseshoes. There's a horseshoe pit here, apparently, like back here. So on the currency exchange, this is funny. That is not a service offered any longer on Walt Disney World property. However, it is still offered at Disneyland. On Main Street. I think at Town Hall on Main Street. And there is a location in each of the two, actually in both parks. There's a spot in California Adventure and in the Disneyland Hotel and the Grand Californian. There are
that's interesting
designated places you can go to do currency conversion, which I'm assuming is for the Asian visitors, because those parks do get a lot more of the Pacific Asian nation visitors coming over from Japan and whatnot.
What's funny is we Walt Disney World gets a lot of visitors from the UK. So it's interesting that they don't have that, but I don't know, maybe they're more used to a cashless.
That is exactly at the Disney World website, wherever they have those questions. It's not offered, but we have ATMs, we have debit cards, they do instant conversion.
Yep. And
we always encourage people to do your currency exchange at home before your trip, because you get better rates than you will in the airport. But that's one thing.
So I was going to say, so while you're talking about the stuff that's in the room, can we talk about the room pack and the stuff that you used to get just in your room?
Absolutely. And I know exactly where you're going.
Because yes, you would get the folder, with all the information you're talking about. Sometimes there would be like a 4-color printed book by the time it got to the 90s of like, all the things you could do, not only in Walt Disney World, but also around the Orlando area.
Yes.
And city magazines usually would produce those books and then get them placed inside of the hotels there. But oh my gosh, you used to get postcards and notepads, stationery, and then an envelope, and pens with the resorts' names on it. The pens used to be
everybody
great.
Stole.
Yeah, which of course you would take as many of those as you could. And of course, the shoe shine pads and
makeup removal kits,
right? And the sewing kits. I mean, they used to be there. You didn't have to ask for it. You would get the thing with like replacement buttons and a needle, and so in case you popped a button while you're on it was just there in the room.
And you left it there too. Now people just take them and run off with them.
Dry cleaning bags.
Todd, I walked out of the breakers with an entire bag full of toiletries. So like I'm not. There's no shame here.
Right. And when they started out, they were hard soaps that were wrapped. Each of the hotels had their own specially wrapped hard soaps with their logos.
With their logo, right? The contemporary soap. JT, didn't you have an unused contemporary soap or something?
Yeah, I got like a 4-pack off eBay for like $2 or something. It was
you sent them to us or something. I can't.
I have a big bag of the much beloved 90s and 2000s era of the black, the black, white, yellow Mickey, where on the back it has the quote, "Everybody neat and pretty. Let's get on with the show." I have those soaps and shampoos and conditioners that I picked up at a flea market. The lady had a whole bunch of them out, most of them unopened, and of the shampoos and all. And I said, she's how my mother, she used to, she would always clean the room out and she would always keep this stuff. She's, I don't know, I paid $1 or $2 for literally like a shopping bag full of these things, which are still here. I got to bring them down for Retro Magic, but of course, the first thing I wanted to do was try it out. Like the bar of soap doesn't go bad. Like it's a bar of soap. So I've used a couple of them, but the shampoo, I tried to I said, let me try one of the shampoos. And I was like, you might think shampoo doesn't go bad, but you're wrong. It still cleaned my hair. It lathered and cleaned my hair, but the scent was not the scent of Disney shampoo of the era, which was a fairly generic kind of like Johnson's Baby shampoo smell back then. This one smelled like some old lacquer or something. Like it was just not. I was like, I'm not going to use this again. My hair didn't fall out.
Was this the black and red design?
Yes. So I have a bunch of them.
I mean, you guys are well aware. We stayed in the campground, so we didn't have these amenities. And the first time we stayed at the cabins or the wilderness homes before they were cabins, we were like, what's this? This is great. So, of course, that was back another Disney difference. You could get housekeeping. They came every day, and they would restock these every day. So every day my mom took a couple of them, put them in her suitcase, and then every day we got more and just did that for years. I have yet to tell her your story yet, Brian, because she listens to the show now. She'll probably listen to this in 5 years, but they've moved to Florida, and in the Florida house, she has all the Mickey soaps ready to put out for when the kids show up.
The soaps are fine.
The
soaps are fine. It's the liquid stuff that
It's a whole box of it down there, and I just had to laugh.
I would just be a little like you might want to just mix it with a little perk or something to give it a little nice.
But it's the same thing. There's probably like 200 bars of soap down there in her closet, ready to go.
But the soap is fine. The bars of soap don't go bad. They're good in a pinch.
Yeah, But we had the sewing kit with that same logo on it. The soaps, the shampoos, the whole deal.
I forgot they used to give you an issue of Disney magazine too. When that was, you had to buy that like at the newsstand or as part of another thing. You got a complimentary copy of Disney magazine in your room as well.
Oh yeah.
I
do you remember?
So it's further down on the list, but there was also a period of time. So let's talk about in terms of giving you printed material. Yeah. I'll skip ahead on this one. In the 1970s and early 80s guides, under the newsstand, if you wanted newspapers, each resort had a newsstand. And how I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't prep you for this, but the Polynesian had the greatest name in history for its.
Yes, it was called News from Civilization.
Yes. And that was the name of the little news shop that we have a couple of good pictures of it on the website, but they're phenomenal because, in the back there was liquor behind the counter and you could pick up like cigarettes there. And like, it was a newsstand. It was a candy, like there was candy bars and they didn't sell gum on property, but Lifesavers and stuff. And then the local newspapers, because back then, until like the 90s, there was no like picking up the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal if you weren't like in the Northeast corridor on like on a daily basis.
I think they actually had newspapers from major metropolitan cities there. That's my understanding. I don't know.
Their advertising had them as local newspapers. Like you might have gotten the Orlando Sentinel and the Tampa,
maybe the Miami Herald.
You had the St. Pete. You had two papers in Tampa, St. Pete, right? Like there were
the St. Petersburg Times and the Tampa Tribune.
Yeah, and there's only one now, right? Yeah. So those were maybe and yeah, you're right. Probably the Miami Herald and a handful of others, maybe. But and then in the 90s, so this was the dive today, because I was curious, when did USA Today start? Because I remember it was not in existence when I was little.
It was I want to say like 1982. Yeah.
82. It started as a Gannett owns it, the Gannett News Service. And it's funny because it, in the Wikipedia listing on it, or AI, Google's AI, I don't remember which one I saw, called it a mid-level newspaper. And I'm like, what the frig is a mid-level newspaper? So I had to click on it. And basically it's like, well, that's the difference between like U.S. News and World Report and like Entertainment Weekly. Like people who are interested in entertainment and pop culture and other things, the newspaper includes heftier coverage of that. And less, extensive coverage of major news events around the world.
Yeah, it wasn't hard-hitting journalism. It was like, it's a little bit of like, here's what's going on.
It was, there was Time, there was Newsweek. Yeah. There used to be a great commercial for a subscription to U.S. News and World Report, and it was hosted by the editor. He would hold up an issue of Newsweek.
Do you believe this stuff? Superman, he's 50. Who cares? And mad about Max. If I was a Newsweek subscriber, I'd be mad that Max is on the cover.
Basically trying to get the McNeil Lehrer Hour News Hour watchers to subscribe to U.S. News and World Report. But it was like a 1 minute, commercial with the 800 number at the bottom the whole time, operator standing by, calling out to subscribe, and for 52 cents an issue or something. And you don't pay for the first 4 issues. We'll send you the bill. And if you don't like it, just write cancel and send it back. So that's something I remember. But anyway, USA Today, they went through a period in the 90s and 2000s where it was delivered to every one of the deluxe hotel rooms. It would appear outside your door. So if you stayed at the Polynesian or the Yacht and Beach or Wilderness Lodge or one of those, you'd wake up in the morning, and when you went to leave for the parks, there was an issue of USA Today sitting right by your hotel door, waiting for you to leave. In 2012, they stopped the delivery to the doors and started putting stacks of them at the elevator landings on each floor and in the lobby. So if you were interested in it, you could grab it, but otherwise you did not have to grab it. I certainly don't. I think it's probably stopped altogether now because I don't see them around.
I also remember getting the American Express dining guides. Do you remember those that were left in the room? Those were really cool. And those were definitely, they were handy because they told you, what hours certain restaurants were open. And it was.
I had one called the white glove treatment. It was.
You got the fanny pack too.
Yes, I had the fanny pack.
Yeah. Very high tone, those which was the term in the publishing industry, those publications. We're not talking like newsprint here. They were glossy, thick magazine paper, very well done. So we skipped to the newsstand, but I'm going to jump back now because we talked about currency exchange, and one of the services offered in the 70s guides, in the in-room guide, was a foreign interpreter.
Yeah.
So you could call and arrange for a foreign interpreter, and they do still kind of offer that. Now they call it the Ears to the World program. And I've actually can't recall seeing people with these, but they give you a wireless headset that you take into the attractions, and anything that's a scripted show or attraction, they offer the narration in Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, and Japanese. And we all, if you've walked through the gates of the Magic Kingdom and the other parks, You also know that they offer park maps in those languages as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is the Ears to the World program. So there's a program that has survived in a way.
Yep.
Back then, you'd call down and they'd send Balky up to translate for you.
Of course not. Don't be ridiculous.
That's a Perfect Strangers reference for you kids out there. I have a question. Have any of you ever utilized not the self-laundry, but the laundry services offered by housekeeping at any resort you've ever stayed in?
I don't know.
I'm sure at some point.
So back in the day, you'll remember in most of those resorts, what they would do is in the closet, there was always one like hanger that had like a bag on it. And then what are those carbon copy sheets?
Oh, yeah.
2 or 3 sheet carbon copy sheet that had all of the descriptions of laundry you could be listing, underwear, undershirt, brassiere, shirt.
Do you want starch? No starch?
All of those things. And you would list like 3 shirts, 2 skirts, 1 sport coat, and then any special instructions or whatever. You would call housekeeping, or you could leave it on your bed. So if it was like a 5-day trip and you didn't care, you'd leave it on your bed with the order. And when the housekeeping came in, they would take it. And the rule back then was if you wanted it the next day, you had to call housekeeping before 9 a.m. to give it to them with your sheet filled out, and they would have it back to you the next day. I actually had to use this service. 2 things on this. Disney does still offer it, but you have to call housekeeping. There isn't anything in the rooms or anything anymore. So if you're in a situation where you needed something laundered, you do still have the ability to call housekeeping and make a request that they send someone up. I actually had to use this for our last Retro Magic because you will all remember I had my beautiful white dinner jacket, my Indiana Jones white dinner jacket that I brought down.
Yes.
And that I had bought just for the occasion. I had that and my suit and everything all cleaned. I used my suit travel case that I almost never use because I don't really travel with hanging clothes that often. And I got down there and pulled it out, and it was all wrinkled. Like whatever that suit bag is supposed to do for it, it just was not in the condition I wanted it to be in. And fortunately, I had checked into the Dolphin like 3 days or 2 or 3 days before our event. So the first thing I did was tell them I have some dry cleaning I need done. And I gave them my suit and that jacket. And I said, here it is. This is what I need done. Just charge it to the room. And I think it was the next day when I got back from the parks for my afternoon break. There they were hanging perfectly in my closet with a little receipt attached to them. And I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. So there's a service that was, more common when men would travel with sport coats or suits for dinner, and women would travel with dresses. Less common now because you don't really have to dress for dinner unless you're going to Victoria and Albert's. So if you're having a laundry mishap at the resort, you would think the most likely age group to spill something all over themselves or need something would be a child. And Howard, you reminded us of a service that I hadn't thought of to include in this list.
Yeah. So all of the resorts, at least the Contemporary and the Polynesian, actually had their own child services. There would be, an activity center that you could take the kids down to in the Fiesta Fun Center at the Contemporary. And they had opened up with a kids center in the where Trader Sam's is now in the Polynesian.
Yeah, the Neverland Club.
Well, no, before that.
Before that,
yeah.
But,
so and that's the thing. So each of the hotels individually had one. Then in the 80s, it was consolidated into the Neverland Club. Eventually, that went away, and then you could still call. I remember one time I went. And we called the front desk, and they recommended a private service to have a babysitter come up to the room.
And that is still how they handle it. Because on the last Retro Magic, I had a friend come in who had her daughter with her. And that was something that was arranged the one night so we could meet and say hello to each other.
Yeah. But it was really great when that was just there and available at the hotel. And they always did a great job. It's just one of those things where it's like, oh shoot, it's not there anymore.
And of course I was curious. I was like, oh, well, she's an older woman, like a woman in her 60s. And she was, there, but she had just put her daughter down to bed, and she'll sit there and hang out with her.
And if I recall,
till I get back,
when it became the Neverland Club, it was behind the Tangaroa Terrace.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And another facility that was there that has long gone was the arcade. We lost, obviously, the one in the Contemporary, the Pueblo Room and all that. Not Pueblo Room. What was it?
The Fiesta Fun Center.
Fiesta Fun Center. But the Polynesian had an arcade. And I remember playing Outrun and many other 80s games in that area.
I'm trying to remember now whether or not one survives. This is where Yvonne would come in handy because she knows where all the arcades are. Because they do still have the Wilderness Lodge, and let me think where else. Yacht and Beach have one. It's still there.
Swan and Dolphin have one. I just played it.
Yeah.
Animal Kingdom Lodge has one.
Oh, do they?
Fort Wilderness still has one.
It was behind Crockett's Tavern. It was always really small. It was like enough for like 6 to 10 games.
It may
tops.
have gone the way of the Dodo Bird just in this last expansion of the bar there. But it was there until a couple of years ago, if that's the case.
Well, they had them too at the Meadow area. Had one right there next to the pool. That was pretty big. Yeah. I did want to add too, the Wilderness Lodge had a child care center, the Cubs Den. And it was right there, right by the main entrance. Well, not the main entrance, kind of like the side entrance. And I did find their hours, because this one always interested me. I was too old for it, but it was open from 4:30 to midnight. And,
I was going to say, I remember them being like 4 to 10 or something like that. But 4:30 to midnight sounds good.
Well, if you want to go to Top of the World and catch a show without, Junior yelling, it's a great way to do it.
Yep. Free video games, arcade games, arts, crafts, board games, a Disney movie. Our child-friendly menu is available for a Hungry Cubs and is included in the hourly rate.
Oh, nice.
There you go. The child-friendly menu. It's M&Ms and popcorn.
I think it's gone. I really think it's totally gone now. It's not
when they closed the Neverland Club, it's all third-party private babysitting now, right?
I will have to mention, because I know someone will dig me for it, that the Neverland Club eventually became Lilo's Playhouse, I think.
Oh,
and then it closed.
Oh, wow. That's all right. The whole Lilo and Stitch thing for me, it's got a revival now. Is that fandom missed me, but I'm aware that it exists. So thank you for bringing that one up, Hal. That's a wonderful one. So you got some dry cleaning. You packed it up. You're getting ready to go home. Let's talk about, this is a timely topic now, and we're not a news site, but resort airline check-in. And I'm going to separate this a little bit from Magical Express, but we don't have to. I was going to talk about that under transportation, but there was a period of time where Disney introduced resort airline check-in at the hotels. And I used to utilize it always. I will preface this by saying, because a lot of people kind of marry it with Magical Express, the resort airline check-in predated Magical Express before that service started and ended. And resort airline check-in was wonderful because I recall using it at the Polynesian, and I recall using it at the Port Orleans French Quarter. And my recollection of those two things were, so if your flight was before 1 p.m., you had to bring your bags down to the Bell Station the night before. And what they would do is they would put those actual tags that they put on at the airport that have your your flight number and your destination airport that the baggage retrieval system scan when they get to the airport on that. They would take your bag from you there, put those tags on them, and issue you your boarding pass So you would do your airline check-in right at the bell stand or next to the bell. The Polynesian, I remember, is right out front by the little waterfall and pond.
Yeah.
They were just set up there, and they would have a baggage carts, and they would just load, after they tagged them, they would load them on, give you your little receipt. And then we usually flew home in the evening. So we would get a day in the parks. So we'd, get up in the morning, pack all of our stuff up, leave, one little bag of toiletries or whatever our carry-on was. And then everything else went down to the bell station, and we would get our, check our bags for our afternoon or evening flight. And it was like one of the most convenient things I ever remember, not having to go up either that giant elevator or 3 flights on or a giant escalator rather, or 3 flights on the elevator at Orlando International to go check in at my, my American Airlines desk and check my bag and all. It was just always so much easier to do it at the resort. And when that service went away, I was always so disappointed. I never used Magical Express because I did not like the time windows they gave you. The last thing I wanted to do when I got to Orlando was wait on a bus to be dropped off at my resort while they dropped other people off at other resorts on the way. It's like the original Uber economy experience. And I did not, there is no world where I will leave for the airport 3 hours before my domestic flight. Like, it just doesn't, I am literally, compute, I try and cut it as close as I can. So I like that whole idea of like, you have a 10 a.m. flight, your Magical Express bus will be here at 6:30 a.m. I'm like, nah, for me, it won't. Nope. I'll drive myself. Thanks.
Yeah. It's interesting that was bought on and then removed because, I think part of that was done with the Universal expansion back when Harry Potter, was big and all that. And that was a really great way for Disney to keep people on their property. Right. I'm assuming because it was included in your package that became a money loser, probably what they were paying to Mears to move all these people.
Yeah.
And, you got late night buses with 2 people on it, and Johnny's driving this bus with only 2 people, and it's causing so much, it's a logistical challenge, right?
It is. The story of it coming back, which is a current event story. They've brought it back to a couple of resorts on a pilot basis and only for Southwest Airlines. So if you're at, I think, Pop Century or the All-Stars, maybe, and you're flying on Southwest, they're offering it as like a pilot right now. It would be great to see that as a service that comes back. I mean, that was one of the great things that I used to utilize and just thought was the bee's knees, was being able to, offload that luggage. And, it's just easier when you get to the airport. Even Todd, you and I are rental car people. So getting there and not having to drag your bags from the rental car to the check-in gate, to the check-in desk it'd be so much easier.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Is curbside check-in a thing that still exists at airports, or was that done away with?
It does in Philadelphia. It is during prime hours. So if you're rolling up there for like a 9 o'clock flight, you're less likely to find the sky caps there to take your bags. Yeah. But it is still in Philadelphia.
Yeah, some airlines, some airports still have it. And going back to the bag thing too, I think one of the other services outside of Disney that is stellar, which Disney was, in a way modeling. If you've ever been on the Swiss trains, they have this great service where you can move bags between, stations. But if you're flying Swiss Air, they'll come to your house, pick up your bags, check them into the flight, and you collect them at your final destination.
Wow.
Or that is called Swiss efficiency.
It is. Or if you're not at a home, and like us, we were at a hotel, we were taking the train to Zurich. And you just go in, you say, I'm checking on these flights, and boom, you get on the train and you never see your bags. It's just fantastic.
Their cheese may have holes in it, but their service does not.
Service does not.
Okay, now if you switched resorts while you were staying there, did Disney not used to move your bags from the one resort to the other?
Still do. They did for us.
They still do.
Yeah. Okay.
They still
charge.
do. It's just not, as you know, instantaneous. Like you're giving up your bags in the morning, and they may not get to your room till 6 o'clock at night or something but they'll get there.
We did it. when we changed from Animal Kingdom over to wherever we were staying for last Retro Magic, and it was seamless. It was all ready when they were there when they done with the time promised.
Yeah. So that
yeah, you can't say, hey, I'm going over now and I'll have them. It's you got to tell them in the morning, and they're like, oh, okay, they'll be there at 4 or whatever.
So on the lines of communications, so we know that they will still send a fax for you, or you can still have a fax sent to you if the number is out there. That is something Disney will still do for you, although it used to be listed as a service. But back in the day, they would rent pagers. So I think some of you will remember this was a trend. I'm not going to say 90s as much as 2000s. People would walk around with those private walkie-talkies, like
oh yeah, that's
that
right.
would cover like a mile or two of ground.
Was it Nextel had push to talk?
It wasn't the Nextel push to talk. These were like you could order them from like Radio
families
Shack or
would
whatever.
get them in order to talk to each other.
Families would get them and radio each other. Well, unless you wanted a gigantic, brick-looking walkie-talkie in 1982. Those services, like those compact walkie-talkies, weren't around. There's like 12 people listening who remember seeing families using these, and then everybody else is like, "What are these guys talking about?" But
Johnny, mom wants you back. Your hot dog's getting cold.
That's exactly what would happen. Is like Dad would take the kid on Imagination, Mom would take the other one on Horizons, and when they got off, they'd walkie-talkie each other like, "All right, where are you right now?" And I'm over here. I'll meet you there.
Trouble the radar, sir.
Sir,
what is it?
Can I talk to you, please, sir?
Well,
I'm trying to hear, sir.
you don't need that, Private. We're right here. Now, what is it?
I'm trying to hear, sir.
Now, what is it?
Exactly. And it was just always so funny to see them like, hey, Breaker 19, Breaker 19. I got a 10, I got a 20 on Mickey Mouse over here.
Exactly.
They were always that like black and bright yellow too, like the
yes.
And then the dads that would wear them with a fanny pack would also wear them with the lanyard.
Clip it to your belt or to a lanyard. Yes,
exactly.
It's either clipped to the belt or to a lanyard. The moms, a lot of times, they were clipped to the stroller.
Yep.
They might be clipped to the stroller when they were wandering around. Anyway, back in the 70s and early 80s, Disney you could from the front desk rent pagers, and they would you get 2, 3, 4 pagers for the family or whatever, and that way you could go to a payphone and page the member of the family you were trying to reach.
Just imagine.
You didn't have a cell phone.
This is amazing, but the inconvenience factor is unbelievable too, right? But it's convenient, but it's inconvenient from today's standards.
But imagine also back then, I think 12 now? You have to be 12 or older to go in the park by yourself?
Was that what it is? Yeah.
Back then, 7-year-old Todd could just...
Oh, yeah.
Mom and Dad could send him off from the Contemporary to go over to the Magic Kingdom, and he could, he's got his little ticket stapled to his shirt. He can go in, and they could give you a pager, and that way you could call them or they could call you if they needed to, get a location on you or needed you to come back to the room. Or so it sounds crazy, but it was at the time. Yeah, it was the method that was available. The other things in line with the fax machine, telegrams and telex, which we went over on a previous episode, what both of those were.
And don't forget too, we talked in the other things that you could rent, maybe not from the front desk, but from the theme parks were the cameras. We talked about that on
the talk about the cameras
or whatever, all of them.
So telegrams and telex were services they offered at the front desk, and I know I mentioned this in the past, but I don't think they wheeled it up to your room, but maybe they did in the Dick Nunes service era. But if you needed use of a typewriter, they could arrange that for you. As I listen to that laugh, but that's true. Imagine you're down there and all of a sudden there's some document or letter or something you have to do. You could arrange use of a typewriter, and I would be willing to bet that part and parcel to that, they, the way that they certainly catered to conventions at the Contemporary, I would be surprised if they did not also offer dictation for a high-powered executive or something if they needed it, that they could send up someone from the secretarial pool or something to get something typed up. This one was interesting to me because it made me. I have one friend that works at the front desk of one of the resorts, and I need to ask this question. But before, so you're used to now. I mean, you check into like a $38 Nights Inn somewhere on the side of the road in Alabama, and there's going to be a hotel safe in the room. Sometimes they're just the throwaway ones that literally somebody can just pick up and walk out of the room with. Or they're the ones that are built into the wall, which is what we're more used to seeing. And so, remember the ones that would be built into like to the side of the closet,
Right, yeah.
and like the door would open,
yeah.
and you know now most of them are kind of just on top of something in the closet where the shoes go or something like that. But prior to that, if you were traveling and you had your jewelry or you had a large amount of money or something, there was the hotel safe, and Todd, you being like me, a Love Boat aficionado, you'll know that several Love Boat plots centered around going to the purser's desk and handing over valuables.
Absolutely.
For Gopher to lock up in the safe for a passenger.
Yep.
The hotel safe was the standard up until like the 1980s when in-room safes became a thing. Before that, if you were traveling with important documents or anything of value that you wanted to be kept safe while you were traveling, you would go down to the front desk and ask for something to be placed in the hotel safe, and they would give you a receipt for it.
That's right.
And they kept it back there behind the front desk somewhere in the hotel safe. And I know we're all imagining the giant bank vault like that is probably still there because there's no way to remove
That's
it.
right.
Without knocking the building down. And so the hotel safe is something that used to be there and is not. So I don't know if you can go to the front desk now and ask if something can be put in for safekeeping. So I have to ask my friend who still works there, like, is that a service that is offered?
I was going to say, if one of our listeners is on the way to a resort right now on their vacation, try to get something into the hotel safe.
Yeah, especially if you're at a deluxe resort, that's where I would think of it. You say,
and give them the most trivial thing possible. It's like, oh, I have this pin, very special.
It's the rarest Disney pin that was ever made.
I got it from someone out in front of Mission Space. It's it's the hidden Mickey Horizons.
So one you mentioned, how was package delivery from the parks or downtown Disney to your room or to the front of the park?
Yeah, that was such a big.
That was when I bought my monorail toy, the original monorail set. I remember having it delivered back to our hotel room.
Oh, really? You had it.
Yeah. I mean, you pay it. And,
well, who wants to drag that around with you all day long?
Well, exactly.
That's true.
They were gigantic.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever used the package delivery. I probably did.
Absent that, it was very helpful just to be able to grab it from the front of the park. At the end of the day, being able to go up to the, I think it was stroller rental or something was where you picked it up.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I would go in the 90s with my girlfriend's family, the dad was a collector of the Laredo like sculptures. And so not having to carry, $1,000 or $1,200 sculpture with you all day was kind of a big deal.
What if you go down and buy that $200,000 Spaceship Earth they have in the Erebus Brothers?
Yeah, how are you going to get that to me?
Back in Germany or wherever it is.
I'm going to go get that silver Taj Mahal from the or a suit of armor. How do you?
Can you put this at the front for me to pick up on the way out? So that is a service that is used to be there and is not anymore. But I do hope comes back someday. This is one I threw on the list: boat rentals at the deluxe and moderate resorts. And as you know, when they built the original hotels in Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake, they had sunfish, they had sailboats, there were catamarans, motorized boats, fishing boats, and then the ever-present motorized water sprites. And they were first taken away from the moderate resorts. The Caribbean Beach had them, and the Sassagoula River there, Port Orleans and Riverside and French Quarter, and Old Key West had them as well, all along that river there, that you could then ride the stuff into the lagoon there by downtown Disney or Lake Buena Vista at the time. And they stopped it at the moderate resorts first, and then COVID, they stopped it at the deluxe resorts. And to my knowledge, I know the Sprites are not back, and the sailboats all went the way of the Dodo Bird many decades ago. And so the last thing is the fishing excursions, which I think may still run. But I don't know that you can drive your own boat. I think the fishing excursions might still run.
Is that the ones where they Disney person takes you out to go bass fishing on this? Okay.
And it's really hard. You can stick a line in there with no bait on it, and the bass just jump on it.
Yeah, it's amazing that's a thing, and what they charge for it is crazy.
Yeah, you still can do that. You can do a 2 or 4 hour excursion.
Okay.
Caribbean Beach, Fort Wilderness, Contemporary, Old Key West, Yacht and Beach, they'll do it there. And there's also dockside fishing at Fort Wilderness and Port Orleans Riverside.
Yes, I have done it at Port Orleans Riverside. We did it there. But they ended the boats. So first at the Riverside and Old Key West, when they started doing the amphicars and all the construction down there and converting into Disney Springs. So that was their excuse for ending that one, because they didn't want people zooming out into the, running up to the amphicars and, getting in the way of water traffic down there. And then sometime after that, they just took them away from the Caribbean Beach and said, we're not going to have them here anymore either. The marina is still there at the Polynesian, and the marina is still there at the Grand Floridian and the Contemporary. So maybe that's a thing that will come back someday. Pour one out for Sammy Duvall.
Yeah. What's interesting about the marina, I walked past the Polynesian one a few weeks ago, and the slips are still there for the pontoon boats, because they use it for the fireworks cruises and things like that. The water sprite slips with that section where you would drive in to keep you straight. Those are long gone. But the what do you call it is there the booth where you would go rent, and they stored things, and
that's pretty recent, because I was there a year ago and those slips were still there at the Polynesian. So that's
yeah, they're a lot rotting at a lot of resorts, just sitting there, the little parking spaces and the drive-ons and everything. It's kind of sad. I will say one thing I do regret is not skiing on Bay Lake with Sammy Duvall or anybody. I just never. I remember even seeing it and I should do that.
Never did that, or parasailing. No, never did either.
No, I didn't parasail. I've never parasailed. I'm interested in that.
I parasailed once, and it was the scariest experience of my life. I'll never do it again. I mean, I'm a big guy, and being held up there by two S hook latches, which was basically what was holding me. And I'm like, I don't care how strong weighted this metal is. All I'm doing is staring at it, saying that's the only thing keeping me from like a 150-foot drop into the ocean below me. Because we were down the shore, and I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. I did, my niece wanted to do it. I'm like, yeah, all right, Uncle Bri, I'll take you. I did not enjoy that.
They did have at one point, this was the 2010s, around that point, they had Bay Lake jet ski tours. That has been gone. It was kind of low speed. It wasn't like you're ripping around out there. So it seemed kind of counterproductive. That was something that was recreation wise. And then the other thing, which I don't know if I missed it, you guys said it, the old beach swimming.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That was kind of like part of the fun of staying at a resort, because you could be like, I'm gonna have a pool day, I'm gonna have a beach day, and we'd go to the Fort Wilderness Beach for the day, and there'd be the concession stand there, lounge chairs, beach volleyball, the whole thing, and it was just a nice, different thing to do.
We just added a film to the archive there that we put on YouTube, and I had clipped a little piece of it where the family was at, in the beach at River Country, in front of River Country, and then playing in River Country behind it. And there were comments coming in on it on Instagram, and I never get in that water. And you're going back 30 years ago when the water actually looked pretty clear, relatively speaking, which it used to be. But that is one. So that all ended after September 11th. They somewhere right after that, 2001 was when they stopped. And most people think it stopped in like the 80s. And no, that you could still swim in the water off the beaches of the Contemporary, the Polynesian, the Grand Floridian, Fort Wilderness, and Wilderness Lodge until 2001. And then that was when they ended that was when the no swimming signs went up and
Chief Brody showed up.
Out of the water! Out of the water now! Everybody out! Get out! Get out of there! Get out! Out of the water!
What the hell is that idiot doing?
Well, and I really think that was one where they really chalked it up more to less and less people were going in the water. The pools were getting far more elaborate, and really it was just a hassle. So they, less guest interest. So we're not going to make that part of the experience anymore.
Was it not tied more to 2016 and the alligator attack? Because they were still letting people in the water back then.
No, they were not. They were not.
You were not supposed to go in the water up after 2001,
Correct.
but the beaches were still there.
Correct.
And you could walk up to them and
yes.
go.
Yeah.
So you could walk out. And now it's like the rope fence.
There's rocks. There's rocks that
You'll just tumble
discourage.
down them if you.
I mean, I know I harp on this so much, but I feel like this is one of those things that just, changed over the years. Is like the islands and the beach fronts there were always pristine white sand. And then as time went on, it's like just the normal Florida outgrowth, encroached. They stopped cutting the grass on those islands and making them look manicured and beautiful. It just looks all overrun now.
But realistically, the amount of effort that had to go to keep that way over the years. I mean, let's be honest, the beach wasn't white forever, right? It started to go to that yellow color. And I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but yeah, it does change the feel. I think they've done a good job with the rocks preventing the weeds from growing up. And we walked the whole thing from TTC over to Contemporary, and it was a very nice walk. We enjoyed it. And it's landscaped decently, but you don't have that waterfront feel anymore. You're just meandering near the water, but still nice. But I get what you're saying, though.
One thing they did, and I don't think they still push it at Polynesian, is the beach fireworks viewing. Yeah. They had that at Fort Wilderness too, and they actually even pumped in the music there. And I don't think they do that anymore.
I was at, I guess, Geyser Point last year, that was a big deal. Like, oh, hey, fireworks are about to start, and they pipe the music in there so you can watch it. So I don't know about Fort Wilderness, but Wilderness Lodge, it's still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do a couple minutes here. Some people are laughing because they probably think this whole thing has been old man yells at cloud, but I'll give you a couple that both me and Todd have kind of experienced in the last few years. Changes you've noticed. One has been since the pandemic. It's like services that were cut and then have never been restored. I'll give you. So as I told you, just stayed at the Breakers. One of the things that a premier resort has is turn down service at night. And it's not extensive, but the housekeeper comes in the morning like normal when you're out of the room or whatever, and straightens up, makes the bed, cleans up the bathroom, the usual every day. And then at night, when we would go out to dinner, we'd get back and they had been through to do kind of a quick sweep again. The bed would be made. There wasn't mince on the pillow. It was some kind of froofy chocolate that was left, but there was chocolate on the pillow, and the bed was all set for the night. There was like a floral pillows that they would put there when they made the bed up in the daytime that would go into the closet at night. So that was like ready to sleep. So they were like display pillows for the daytime. And they would just quick empty the trash, straighten up the it was a 10-minute visit maybe in the evenings just to kind of run through there and tidy up. The first time I stayed at the Grand Floridian in 2003, that was the experience. there was when we were out in the morning, the housekeeper came in and did a full clean, and I think back then they were still stripping the beds every day and made the beds and the whole thing. And then invariably back then, we go back to the room and usually relax a little in the afternoon, maybe shower for dinner. And the housekeeper would come in a second time and do a quick turn down which would mean straightening up the beds, turning in maybe one corner on each side of the beds for whoever might be sleeping there. There was chocolate left on the pillows, I remember, or on the bedside. And they would just empty the trash and do it if you had used some towels or washcloths during the day, they would refresh that. And it wasn't a long visit, but it was what you would get at a flagship premier luxury resort. I don't know what the housekeeping at the Grand Floridian is, so I won't speak to it. I do know when I just stayed recently at the Coronado Springs in the tower, I was very surprised that my housekeeping was every other day. And I was like, really? Like, this is, and that's, I believe that is the standard across. I mean, Todd, you were just a Polynesian, but you were in DVC, right?
I was DVC. I had my own little gripes. So when you're ready.
Well, that was the next thing on the list was your experiences, but they transferred both to regular rooms and DVC rooms.
Yeah. It was funny because my wife and I had a bottle of wine from the previous part of the trip, and she's like, "Let's have some wine tonight." I said, "All right." And you're in a DVC studio.
The previous part of their trip was to the liquor store.
That's right. After the trip, the Turks and Caicos. So we were in a DVC, and I know it's a studio. It's not a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom or one of the bungalow villas or anything. But she's like, "Where are the glasses?" I'm like, "There's no glasses, no glasses at all. Like literally no cups other than paper." I don't recall if there's a corkscrew. There must have been because we got the bottle open. But we're in Pago Pago. I walk, Tangaroa Terrace isn't there anymore. There's no services out that way. So I walk all the way. I'm like, where am I going to go? I just went up to the bartender at Tambu Lounge. I'm like, I have a bottle of wine in my room and she glasses. She's like, "Oh yeah." Immediately just handed me 2 glasses. Like, "Here you go." So it's like, it's known, it's like, is it that hard? And I get it for kids and safety and all that stuff. I mean, at home they live around glasses. That's another point. But it was just amazing that even
not in every home, Todd. Don't be a glassist.
Some people just live in a glass house with plastic. Don't throw rocks at my glasses in my kitchen. It was really interesting. Now, a couple other things, the shampoos have changed over. They're all locked against the wall. We've talked about that's been for years now. And a lot of hotels are going through that also too, because I get the soap thing, but the bottles and all that and the from the ecological perspective, right?
Yep.
Disney did one up thing recently, and they had this little Alexa type device that you could say, "Hey Disney," and it would play music. I had no interest in using it whatsoever.
First thing I unplug when I get in the room.
Like, it's too bright. I don't want this.
I don't want Mickey listening to me.
Brian, I know
it just wasn't very smart.
That was it dumb? You tried to use it? Yeah.
I have them all over my house, and then we started asking it Disney questions, like stuff I would ask as a normal tourist, and it really didn't know a lot. Like I just said, like, one point I was like, "Hey, we're leaving today," and it didn't like, "Well, why don't you check out another resort?" Or it was like, "I'm not sure what you're talking about."
Good for you.
I'm charging your credit card for another 4 nights, so you don't have to leave. Yeah, Brian, I sent you a rant. I'm trying to find it here because there were a couple.
It's on the list. I have it on the list. The towel size you were upset about.
Yes. So the towel size has actually gotten smaller. No, I mean, you laugh.
It's that scene in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles when Steve Martin gets that.
And he's just like,
and he's got the washcloth
drying himself off. I felt like that. I mean, it was. Look, I'm not expecting a big plush towel, but again, size and all that. On the positive, there's always been plenty of towels at the pool.
Okay, but stop. You were at the Polynesian?
Yeah.
That's like a $1,200 a night hotel now. They better give you like a full-size bath towel.
All I can tell you is at the Breakers, we had giant towels There were robes and slippers.
Yes.
And there were there were like 10 towels for 2 of us.
Yes.
Brian could have jumped out of the window with a towel and flew down like a Batman.
If I needed to tie the towels together to make a rope to get down to safety, I could do it. I could pull it. I could have pulled it off.
And I get it. I was coming from the Ritz-Carlton in Turks and Caicos, so a very, very nice hotel.
Gold key.
Yeah, well, we used points to do it. It was fantastic. But then again, there, Brian, just like the Breakers, they had the towels, they had the robes and the nice laundry bag and all the different things. JT, you were going to say something. No, I'm sorry.
This hit me years ago. We stayed, we drove in. We had one night to stay at a Hampton down the road, and I remember doing that night. You take all, okay, this is fine. We went to the Wilderness Lodge. Hampton and Wilderness Lodge to me should be 2 totally separate experiences based on the cost and everything. The towels in the Hampton were nicer than the Wilderness Lodge. And this was 10 plus years ago. And I just remember being like, what are we doing here? I get it. It's not, I didn't care. It didn't ruin my trip. But I just remember shower to shower, I go, it's no better at the Wilderness Lodge than the Hampton.
Yeah. All right, Brian, what else do I have on the list?
The last one is, Todd, if you had a complaint or request, who would you call?
Oh, yes, this is right. This is great. So I wanted to call somebody to ask for service for glasses. I thought, in any other hotel, you call the front desk. Oh, sir, we'll bring those up to you right now. I'm sorry you didn't have them. So I call, and it's half of the buttons that, room service, concierge, that are programmed in don't do anything anymore. Right. So I press it, and it goes to this bring. You are having a magical day. Just wait till we get somebody to help you. And I'm like, oh my God. And you press 1 and you press 2 and you're on hold waiting to some call center picks up. So you can't
They're not there on site. You're talking to somebody in Brandon or Tampa or something to ask about glasses in your room.
This is not 3 a.m. Okay. This is literally, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, whatever. This is, Tambu Lounge is going, and Bobby and her kids are still having Ohana, flame sticks of meat. So it's not like the place is shut down. The other interesting thing, and Brian, I don't know if you had this to touch on, we talked about the check-in experience. I walked up into the Polynesian, and I said, why do all the signs that point out check-in, check-out, concierge, bell services all have aloha on them, covering them? I said, what's going on? She goes, oh, well, just like the other resorts, we're becoming an all-inclusive one-stop service. So there is no bell service. There's no
front desk.
Well, there's nobody to call, apparently.
Yeah.
Right. So they're moving at the Polynesian to these podiums where, they just walk around randomly with a charged iPad, because everything's becoming so distant with the check-in. So
so I experienced that for the first time. I wasn't staying there. But we, on a Skyliner ride, got off at Riviera to get something to drink and eat, I think, at the little bar there by the pool. And my friend needed to use the bathroom or something. So we went up into the lobby of the hotel. And I hadn't been inside before to kind of explore it. And I'm standing in the lobby and looking around saying, where's the front desk? I had a question. I don't remember what it was. It might have been, where's the bathroom? But I went to look around, and there was just there were a couple of people, Disney cast members, in their outfits. But I'm like, who? I normally would have gone to either the guest services or whatever whatever you call it. I'm not going to bother the people checking people in, and that was what it was. They are taking out all these front desk, and it's just these people wandering around with iPads.
It's
you walk in and they're like, hey, you checking in?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. One of the things that not on this last trip, but the previous trip, the one where I met up with Hal and we were moving the archive to a bigger space and doing some of that stuff, I had this experience that I talked to you guys about. And it was right when we started kind of taking notes for this episode. And Hal chimed in on it. The monorails and the ferries around the resort into the Magic Kingdom. The business now where, because everything's a computer metric and how many people are getting on it. And, it's not that they didn't account for those things in previous eras. It's that they just knew they were expected that the ferry would run during park hours back and forth. And now there are blocks of time during the day where they've figured out that there's a lower number of people arriving or leaving the parks. We don't need to run the ferries all day long. We won't run them between 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'll just to save money. We won't run them for those 4 hours.
Being at the resort and the monorails are closed.
So here's my monorail experience, because I remember live slacking it to no. We had left Epcot. I think, were you with me, Hal, when this? No, because that was Super Bowl night. I had left Epcot and taken the Epcot monorail for the first time in forever over to the Magic Kingdom, which was open an hour later. So the Epcot closes at 9, the Magic Kingdom was closing at 10. I arrived to the Ticket and Transportation Center. I get off the Epcot monorail. I go to get on the Express monorail to go to the Magic Kingdom. I kid you not, you're not allowed to get on the Express monorail. What do you mean? It's only bringing people to the Ticket and Transportation Center. It's not carrying people to the Magic Kingdom. You have to get on the resort monorail for that. So, I'm up against the clock here. And I think I was running over there to pick up something from a shop on Main Street or something like that somebody had asked me to bring home. And so I got in line because I said, is the ferry running? No, that's also only bringing people from the Magic Kingdom. You can't ride it back. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm standing there in this extremely long line, and there then becomes an incident on the monorail bringing the resort line. I don't know if somebody threw up or what happened, but it was something that brought that line to a stop. So now you have this line of people like just piling up at the Transportation Ticket Center trying to get onto the resort monorail because it's the only one that will take you away from the Transportation Ticket Center. So somewhere along the line, God bless whoever the cast member was, he wasn't in charge of anything but driving the express monorail. He made the executive decision, anyone going to the Magic Kingdom, come on over here and get on. And so I ended up, and that was after maybe 10 minutes, and the line's piling up and everybody getting, it's a long day. They're getting antsy. So I got my express ride. But the whole time you're sitting there saying, this defies logic. Yeah. There were 100 of us there trying to catch a ride to the Magic Kingdom. And it wasn't an option. They wouldn't let you on. But wait, it's going there. Like, you're going there anyway. Why can't I ride it? But there is some MBA and some office somewhere in transportation accounting that has decided this is the best way to do it.
Oh my gosh, give me a bicycle. I'll just ride on the track over myself.
Well, and I guarantee you there were a couple of knowledgeable people who saw that stranded resort monorail and got on the Magic Kingdom one to get themselves to the Contemporary. Yeah. They just got off at the Magic Kingdom and walked to the Contemporary if that was their destination.
Right.
But it was like this makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. And what's interesting about this too is I get not running the boats in low time because you've got the monorails, but that means you have to run the monorails efficiently and effectively to move the people that are there. Now, what are we saving by not letting you, Brian, get on and other people get on? It's like you said, it's going there anyway. Are we saving the 2 extra helpers that need to be there?
Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Are you only going to check people that are walking in from the TTC? Like, we're going to spend more hours and money sorting people out?
Now we'll talk about food service time. You get out of the parks. The parks are open. Used to be standard close back in the day. The Magic Kingdom would close at 7 or 8, but generally now the standard closes 9, and often the Magic Kingdom's open a little later. So
10-ish, yeah.
Sometimes in the summertime it can be as late as midnight, but
Oh wait, unless there's a party that you didn't pay extra for, in which case
that
you're
is
booted
correct.
out.
There are hard ticket events at these things that they do kick you out for. But I'm setting the stage here for the food side of it. You get out, and maybe you were too busy in line for Tron or something like that, and the restaurants mostly stop seating people before park close. So your option is to grab something at Casey's Corner if you don't mind waiting in the line, or I'll grab something back at my resort. And depending on how challenging the transportation is to get back to your resort, you may or may not make it there before the quick service closes. So back in the day, because I was looking at some 70s and 80s information, but I'll start in the 90s because you'll all remember this. There was a big push back in the 90s and 2000s. Each room, from the All-Stars all the way up to the Grand Floridian, would have a little, on whatever little kitchen, dining, multi-purpose table was in a room. And every room had them then, and every room still has them as far as I know. But there would be a little brochure standee, a cardboard standee, advertising pizza delivery to your room. And that was a big push in the late, mid to late 90s and all the way into the 2000s, where you could order a pizza in 5 or 6 different ways with the different toppings, beer, wine, soda, like wasn't chicken fingers and all kinds of stuff, but in all those places you could order pizza until midnight. It was from 4:30 to midnight was generally the delivery to the rooms, and it was at all of the resorts. That is not the case anymore, and it's not the case anymore, presumably. Well, let me do room service, and then we'll get to why we think it's out there. In 1974, room service was available from 6:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. I remember back then they had 3 hotels. So you had the Polynesian, the Contemporary, and the Disney Inn. 1983, it was 6:30 a.m. to midnight. So they went an hour later. But you could call down, and I remember doing this once. I was, room service has always been obscenely expensive everywhere. Yeah. So it's something as a kid you dream about. And then when you actually experience it, it's never as great as you imagine. But there are times where it comes in handy. I remember getting back to my room at the Contemporary in the tower one time, early, sometime in the 2000s, and I had an upset stomach. And I said, you know what? I'm old-fashioned remedy. I need a Coke. So I called room service and I ordered 2 cans of Coke. And I remember it to this day, 1, because it did the trick, like it helped settle my stomach. But 2, it came, the guy was there in like 5 minutes, but it was this, it looked like an ice bucket. The 2 cans of Coke were in there, and it was completely packed with ice. Like remember when you go into Ice Station Cool and that man was frozen? Yeah. That man was frozen in that. Like that was how they came to me. And I'm just like, someone took care to pack these things in ice to come up to the room with a couple of glasses. And I got my Coke delivered at 10 o'clock at night or whatever it was. Just making the note, if you're not aware, in-room dining now, it ended, I believe, everywhere during COVID. In-room dining now is only offered at the Grand Floridian because that is their flagship resort. So if you are staying at the Polynesian, the Contemporary, the Wilderness Lodge, the Riviera, anything that they regard as a deluxe resort, there's no room service.
It's amazing. And again, back to what Hal was saying for the what you're paying. I will put a little shining star when we were at Saratoga towards the end of COVID. Things were still crazy in place. My wife wasn't feeling well. She got sick at the Magic Kingdom. We went back, and she says, "Look, can you get me a ginger ale?" I went to all the soda machines hadn't been restocked. I couldn't find ginger ale anywhere. I called down. I'm like, "Is there any ginger ale?" And they felt so bad. They sent over some guy with an ice bucket and 3 things of soda for her, and really took. So I don't want everybody to think we're complaining here. There are shining moments when you need it where these, and I think, Brian, you and I were talking a couple days ago, a week or two ago, and we mentioned that the cast members want to do good. They want to give you an experience, but there's rules and regulations, bean counters and MBAs that are saying don't do XYZ because it's going to hurt us. And a lot of this is just driven by money, formulas, algorithms, and
mid-level executives that are not guest facing.
Right.
The bottom line, and please never miss that in episodes or when we talk about this stuff. Cast members, they go out of their way to excel to the degree to which they are allowed to.
And they're still trained very, very well to handle guests of all types, of all frustration levels. And, they do a stellar job with that.
Yeah.
But they are bound by particular rules. Brian and I have experienced some things with diminishing value of items and different things over the years, and diminishing.
That's actually the next thing on the list.
Oh, well, what a segue into that. Let's go.
As we transition a bit to the parks, and it's very brief, one of the things is the tickets.
Yes.
And I'm not going to scream and yell about the prices, because while they are high, they are undoubtedly high. The place down the road is just as high. It's always like within $5, and that's the whole thing. Yeah. Now anymore, my Flyers tickets, back when we used to have them, the season ticket, now it's like $1.25 a ticket and $50 to park. And that thing only lasts 3 hours and they suck.
Right.
So, you get a whole day in the theme park for more than that.
You do get I still say, even back then and even to today, and you get a lot for your dollar, or you have the ability to do a lot for your dollar. What you do with it and how you feel afterwards is your business.
Yeah. So the point, the bone of contention for people like me who visit periodically but regularly, and I think Hal brought this up in our chat as a Floridian. One of the great benefits of Disney up until they ended the practice in 2015 was that your tickets before they added expiration and non-expiration in the early 2000s, I think it was, or maybe even the late 90s, you had to pay for an upcharge to make it non-expiring. But the tickets didn't expire. Right. So my very first trip in 1995, my first trip as an adult, in 1995, I went with my friends and I got sick on one of the days. So I did not go to the parks with them that day. I stayed in my 192 motel room or whatever it was. And while they all went to the parks, and I threw up like 5 times, and, I'd just gotten a 24-hour bug. So I missed a park day. So I had that ticket. And I didn't get back there for 4 more years, but I had that ticket and I could use that day when I went back. And that was the way it was for Disney for 30, 40 years. They did, when they started the Magic Your Way system with the ticket guy and everything, which was sometime, I think, late 90s. They did add the tiered thing where you could, for a less amount of money, have a ticket that was only good for your length of stay, or 14 days. And then it would expire. So you would use your days up, or that was it. And it was cheaper. Or you could buy them buy them where they didn't expire and it cost you more. Now, Todd and I both know, because I used to do it. I would buy a 10-day ticket because it was expensive to buy days 1 through 5. And it was virtually nothing to buy days 6 through 10. So if you bought a 10-day non-expiring ticket, park hopper,
you had the blessing of time.
Well, I had the blessing of time, and normally that was 2 or 3 trips for me.
Yeah.
Because we'd go to SeaWorld, we might stop at Universal for a day, but it brought me back to the parks. And now, it's use it or lose it. That's the only ticket that's available anymore, unless you're buying an annual pass.
And what's even worse is you can't buy them. Now you have to buy them for a period of time. I can't buy them and not use them. So because what they don't want, the non-expiry, I'm sure they made money off of it where people didn't use them and forgot and lost them. But if they didn't have this time frame that they put on the usage of tickets, people would hedge their Disney trip and say, look, I'm going to invest in $5,000 of tickets, put them in my safe, and I will go for the next couple of years and I won't pay the current rate. I'll pay my old rate. I'll buy a bunch of 5-day tickets, a bunch of 2-day tickets, whatever, and use what I need.
I mean, when they announced they were doing away with the non-expiring tickets, that's what I did.
Yeah,
I bought, I don't know, it was 3 or 4.
Right, I bought some
30
of
or
them.
40 days. I forget what it was, but
what I'm saying is you can't even do that now because they want you to buy the latest rate, because they say when you buy a ticket, oh, tell me the week that you're going. I mean, okay, so you can't even buy your tickets until you've booked and you know you're actually going, which is just unfathomable. And going back to the resorts, I remember you could buy the tickets in the resorts. They had all the different types laid out. You could turn them in. It was so easy. Oh, you got 2 days left on this? Here, we'll trade you the 2-day for another one, and we'll do this. Now it's become...
Now it's like the TSA.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's you go up there, they want your ID. They're going back to talk to the manager. Yes. They're coming back out from the back room. And it's actually, you know what it's like? They use the Pawn Stars.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. It's
or like they come back and say, here's what I can do for you. You know,
I got a buddy that can talk about your old ticket.
And it really is like everyone's in negotiation. And they're like, no, this is it's a Magic Kingdom ticket from 1981.
Yeah.
Well, we'll convert it for you, but only for admission to the Magic Kingdom. And I'm like, wait a second. First off, that doesn't make any sense because the Magic Kingdom is their most expensive part.
Right. Why would you give me?
Everything else is less expensive. Second of all, I've been converting these things now for 15 years and we're always park hoppers and now suddenly they're not.
Right.
So again, I don't want to be old man yells at cloud, but just recognize that the impact on you and your family, if you did have that day that you all missed, that, you know, the norovirus swept through your room or little Johnny wasn't feeling well, so you just decided to have a pool day and all, think about going home and what pull it would be to say, you know what, we have 2 days left on those tickets we didn't use.
Right.
We should plan a return trip.
Which means they get more money out of you anyway, which is...
That's the cheapest thing for them to do is let you through the gate.
However, they would rather not have you come back than have somebody else who will pay more money that will fill your shoes. And that's where I was going to earlier too, is that if it's not built for us, which it's not, it's built to move the American dream of going to Walt Disney World, because now it's become a ritual.
Experience it with your kids.
Move it through every single set of kids that grows to the age. That's what the bean counters are saying. And devaluation happens in everywhere, right? We devalue, airline miles get adjusted and all points get adjusted. The sad part is that Disney had some tickets at JT, you experienced it, right? You had a Discovery Island ticket that you turned in the past and received a water park. And now they're saying, it's good for mini golf, right?
Not even that. They wanted me to redeem it for a fast pass or whatever they call it. Lightning Lane. Fast pass. They called it, this is good for an experience now at a park.
I would like to experience a water park.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is because I mean, we could go to a whole ticket thing, but I think Discovery Island years ago was on par with the price of the water parks, you know, especially
it's the same
Fort
price as
Wilderness.
River Country.
Right. And it was just another thing to do. And how that ever, I can understand them saying that it's not equal to a water park, but the problem that I have is if you said it in the past, why are you constantly devaluing these tickets? I mean, soon it's going to be like, well, that's not even enough for a Coke. You can use the water fountain over there and it's cold. How's that? We'll move you to the front of the line for the water fountain.
I think it is worthy talking about the tickets because over the course of time, they have done so much stuff. So the expiry tickets, definitely. Yeah. Even for the Florida resident things, you know, once they started having, you know, you have to pick the park days. Like, they would do, traditionally, they've always done, oh, here's the summertime, you know, 4 tickets for a decent price, or here's the fall one, here's the spring one, here's the winter one. You know, when we first started doing this and going to Food and Wine, it was great. You could get a 4-day ticket. You could do a day here and then wait another month, because usually the period was about 4 months, and you could do a weekend here and then you could do another day. Now it's like you have to use those within 5 days or 7 days.
Who as a resident has
and they're gone.
do that.
Exactly. That's the whole point of the Florida resident thing. And they're trying to get you to come do a vacation there instead of a day here and a day there. Right. But over the course of time, stuff like, there was a child ticket that was different,
from the junior
free and then child and then junior and then adult.
Yep.
And eventually they got rid of the junior ticket and children got, and then suddenly you're an adult from the age of 12.
Right.
To the thing, and the price difference now between the child ticket and the adult ticket is only like
$9.
$5.
It's like $9. I think it's not. It's either $5 or $9.
It's like $5 because
it's so small.
I always
kids
see
have
these
less fun than adults. Like
I see these ads for like, oh, you can go to Disney World for the price of a child ticket. I'm like, oh, good, you saved me $5.
$5, yeah.
And it used to make sense to me that the difference in the prices, because it was based on what you could experience as a smaller child. You couldn't go on Space Mountain, you couldn't go on Big Thunder.
Yeah.
So, they didn't charge you the same because you couldn't go on as much stuff. And it's just a way to wring some more profit out of it.
That's right. You're right. You're moving the goalposts and you're changing these bands that force, even if it's 5% to move up that band, they know what the numbers are to get that. And you know what? That ticket now, that when you buy it, I'm going October 1st. Okay, you can use that ticket from September 29th to October 10th. That's calculated. They know exactly what that is and what the percent chance of you being able to use it before and after. That's not by any they'll just give you a 2-day buffer on each end. You know what I mean? Like that, if you think about it, they know what the crowds are going to be. They know they're pricing it dynamically. Right. So all that is manufactured to make it it makes it as confusing as hell.
The great thing about computers is that they do a lot of work for you. The bad thing about computers is that it has let people figure out this stuff where before just you couldn't figure it out. So nobody cared.
Right. You could give a best guess, but the overriding philosophy was, I want somebody to leave satisfied. I want them to leave happy, and I want them to come back.
Yeah.
Right.
And the policies and things, nobody's coming back for a shoe shine or a haircut, but, the policies that we're talking about on a broader scale, some of the experiences in the resorts and all. Look, the bottom line is people still leave today. I see it through my eyes. I have a coworker who was there the same week and weekend that I was with her. I think her daughter's 10 and her son is 2 or 3. And it was like talking to me in 1988 when I came back to. It was magical. It was this, it was that. It was just the most wonderful thing.
This great cast member did this.
And they rode Guardians 3 times, and they don't care that there used to be dinosaurs in there and Ellen's Energy Adventure or anything. Like they loved the ride, and they loved the Moana water walk through and all that. And that's great. I always take that feedback because I need to hear it. Yeah. I need to hear it. And then I have the complete nightmare story that I will not tell on the show about my, diabetic great niece at 1.5 years old, and the complete just collapse of disability accommodation and customer service. And I won't go on a rant about them taking refrigerators out of the room and replacing them with cooling boxes, which don't keep insulin cold enough. And well, I will go on that rant because that was a service they used to offer back in the day before refrigerators were in every room. You could arrange to have one put in your room for $10 a day or whatever, up to as many as Disney had available. That was something housekeeping and customer service did there. Now, they don't even offer that as an option.
No, and
you can store it at the front desk.
And when you're convenient, leave Epcot and come back to the Polynesian.
Yeah, run back here. Yeah. Well, in the parks, you take a cooler with you and you do it. Yeah. But as far as the room storage goes, you're either packing coolers with ice to put that stuff in there, or hey, you got a blood sugar drop in the middle of the night. Somebody's running to the front desk.
Yeah, waiting for.
All right, I'll tell the rest of the story. So put us in a building right next to the main hall. At least do that for us. Absolutely no problem. We'll do that for you. They were in Alligator Bayou when they checked in the first night, and then couldn't be moved because there were no available rooms.
Right.
I mean, you hear this and you're like, how is this the same company that when my glasses came apart, the screw came out and came apart on Sunset Boulevard. I picked the pieces up. I walked to guest relations next to Sid Kahenga's, and they said, "Can we help you?" And I held the pieces in my hand and I said, "Can someone help me with this?" And a maintenance man with 57 keys and 14 tools came out, looked at it and said, "I'm going to need a different tool for this." And then came back and handed me my glasses put back together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I grew up with.
And that's the personal experience where they are not bound by the ridiculous policy. There's no policy that says that man can't help you today with your glasses.
No, and he still would.
And he still would. But the policy, we can't move you to a room because
we don't have a room to move you to, and we can't put a fridge in your room.
Right, because there's policy, and they're going to get their hands slapped if they do it. The one thing that some of these changes have opened up are cottage industries. Now, you mentioned Uber, right? Delivering that type of stuff.
Uber and DoorDash have replaced some of the services.
Now, the cottage industries that are out there, scooter rental has become a big thing, right? The latest thing is grocery delivery, because they won't bring your groceries anymore. They'll charge you for it, so they'll bring it to your room for you. They'll go shopping for you. Room decoration with balloons and flowers and cakes and folded towels, because Disney's going to not do it, or they're going to charge you insane fee. So you let the person into the room. So when the kids come back after a day, balloons and Mickey Mouse stuff, and there's glitter and curtains and stuff, on the curtains and stuff like that. Those cottage things have moved off property.
One I remember, how I used to get my news before all this stuff came up, is I was subscribed to the All Ears newsletter.
Oh yeah,
back in the 90s and early 2000s, and one of their advertisers was the owner's locker, and it was intended for people who own DVC.
Yeah.
So when you took down your hand soaps and your shampoos and if you had a set of Florida clothes and all that, they would actually bring like a Rubbermaid container or whatever it was, and you'd load that thing up with all those things. They'd pick it up, store it, and I'm sure it's still there. Like, it's still a service. There's probably getting a free ad right now for me. And then when you were making a return trip and coming down in 4 months, let us know which day to drop it off at your resort when you get there, and all your, toiletries and everything else are there, so you don't have to pack them.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that's popped up.
I was going to say one interesting thing about your comment, Brian, that they're not made for us, which I agree completely.
So I'm going to get so much hate mail.
No, hey, let them look. The DVC, I got yelled at for DVC. I'll get yelled at for this. It's fine. What's interesting about this is that what proves the point, we are a company. This is a company that has a resort that's been in business for years and years and years, 70 years of resort work, 50 plus years down in Florida. There is not one single pattern or program that rewards visitors for coming back. There is no, you've been here so many times, we're going to take care of you. I'm sure they have records of it now digitally, but there's no point accrual.
We found out they have whole records on us.
Yeah, exactly.
But what tickets we've turned in and when we've been there.
And me how much he complained.
J. Edgar Hoover over there.
That just proves that Marriott wants my business by giving me points and giving me credit card points towards that. And I get there's Disney credit cards, you get 10% discount. That's to get you to come back. But there is no other program like airlines, hotels, rental cars, all the other travel things. When you think about it, Disney's main goal is to get money out of the next person that's going to come through those turnstiles. If you don't come back, they don't care, because the next person is. And now the next person's coming right through the turnstiles, and they can make as much out of them. So they don't.
Okay. And I will, not that I'm certainly going to defend them, but this is a premium experience. They don't need to. They don't need it. They don't need to give you a incentive to come back. Like, the fact that it's Disney World is the incentive to come back again.
Yeah, go somewhere else.
If it's premium, why are we lost all these things?
and that's one of the things that the critics. Yeah, I read. Epic Universe opened today.
Yes,
and there is a segment of fandom out there that's saying, I can't wait to take my child to Epic Universe. I'm sure, but that is a very, very small number of people.
Yeah.
compared to the people that can't wait for the first time their baby meets Mickey Mouse. And that is the lightning in a bottle that no one has captured. And
that's the reward program.
Yeah, that
gets you there.
That's what gets you there. And everybody I know who takes their kid for the first time has that experience. And a lot of them, it makes them want to go back. Look, I go back because around every corner, I have memories. Even though the same things aren't there all the time, I've said it on previous episodes. It's the only time I got on an airplane and flew anywhere with my parents. And it was the only time I was there with my dad or my mom. And so I remember when I'm in spaces where we were before, and especially when I get on Spaceship Earth, Small World, things like that. Like I just remember my dad was sitting in the row behind me, and I turned around and took a picture of him because I have the picture, and standing in places, and that's what that's what's burned in my brain that I don't have from the first time we went to 100 other places. I don't remember the first Flyers game I went to, or when he took me to an Eagles game, or things like that. I don't remember that stuff, but I do remember that. There was one other ticket, Todd. It's the last thing on my list, and I want to bring it up because it goes to that whole service and making sure everybody walks away from there thinking they took care of me. There was a period of time where if you went up and your child couldn't wait to get on Slinky Dog Dash or get on, in my nephew's case, Tower of Terror, and you needed to be 48 inches or 36 inches or whatever it was, and your kid was just short of it, couldn't make it, what did they do for you, Todd?
They would give you this nice little piece of paper that said, sorry, you weren't this tall, you were tall enough to ride this time. Come back and we'll get you on the ride when you're tall enough. And they would basically let you fast pass, skip the line.
It was a future fast pass. I have 3 or 4 of them in there from when I had my nephews there.
Exactly.
I have them for Mine Train and I think Everest, and I know I've either Toy Story or Slinky Dog, but the big rides,
all the height rides had them. And that was a great way because my son did receive one for Thunder Mountain. I remember he was excited that he could finally ride it.
Yeah, you go back and you do it.
And he was thrilled. But that
now it's come back next time and spend $20 on a lightning lane.
Yeah,
you can ride it then. When you're tall enough, get a job, kid.
Yeah.
All right. That is the end of the list for the night.
Yeah. Don't get me started on the all-day lightning lane prices.
I won't get into the food and fun package. I actually used the lightning lane for the first time this past time.
I was talking about the all-day one.
Not the every ride one, but the that's a different.
It was $429 per person on the day I was there.
And I was like, imagine being able to just show up at the park when it opens at 9:00 and just walking and standing in line for whatever ride that you wanted to go on. And you just spend the day walking from place to place. They're like, oh, let's go on that. And you go stand in line for 20 or 30 minutes and then you go on that. And then you would go to the next thing without having to pre-book, prearrange, get up at 5:00 in the morning in order to call 6 months in advance in order to get a restaurant reservation, and
or wake up at 6 or 7, whatever it is, to get a virtual queue when you're on your vacation.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do after getting to bed at 1 a.m. You had that glass of wine in a paper cup in the bathroom, and you're falling asleep, but you got to get up because.
Listen, it was chilled to 49 degrees in the cooler box.
I think it's 50 something in there.
It was a red. It's okay. It was a red.
Yeah.
And you bought it. You were talking about grocery delivery. Those gift shops are fully stocked with Hot Pockets, pancake mix,
Entenmann's mini donuts.
Entenmann's.
But don't expect a nice cold glass of orange juice. You could have a nice cold lukewarm orange juice in a paper cup.
Actually,
they got Minute Maid in they're Simply Orange in the cooler.
Their coolers are cold.
Well, I'm saying is you bring it back to the room the next morning, it's not going to be cool. So.
Yeah, you got to fill the ice bucket.
Lobby. Come on.
You have to fill the ice bucket. That's the first thing I do when I get in a room is fill the ice bucket, and then every day fill it again.
The one thing that I will just say is I feel like the emphasis has changed, and the emphasis is not on the guest anymore. They're not trying to please you. they're trying to please Wall Street and whatever the next. That's the part that I feel the shift. And I keep going back to these old quotes of Walt's, things like, where kings are commoners and commoners are kings, and we love to entertain kings and queens, but the vital thing to remember is every guest receives the VIP treatment, and the training that went into people, you know, that the customers or the cast members had about customer experience, and everything was so focused on customer experience and providing entertainment. They were an entertainment company. Their job was to entertain you. That's how they felt. That was the metric that they were trying to reach. Did I give this person a good value for their money? That's what's going to want to make them come back again. It wasn't even about overextending yourself and making something, you know, it wasn't about being more special than the other person and like, oh, you won this. It's like, no, it was like everybody got treated the same. Even the VIP tours. I mean, it wasn't like you could pay $1,000 to have a plaid take you to the front line of every attraction. It's like, if you wanted a VIP tour, it's like you paid your $6 and you got, 20 people followed one person around and they got you on 6 attractions during the day as you were like, it's just such a different experience now. The tiers and the levels of like, oh, you're this and you're the gold platinum.
Is it obfuscation for confusion and just dropping the dollar because you give up? You know what I mean?
I feel like a lot of this comes down to, the parks were built at one point to have a certain amount of capacity where like lines didn't have to be long because there was enough capacity.
Yeah.
That you could stand in a standby line and it was okay. But once you start shifting this thing around to like, okay, we're not going to have as much capacity as we used to. The parks are busier than they've ever been by 20,000, 30,000 people. And then they start, trying to leverage technology like magic bands and the whole thing of like when you were, pre-selected 3 of your, the attractions that you wanted to go on because they had done surveys and found out that people felt like they had gotten their money's worth if they got to go on their 3 favorite rides. And then their solution is like, oh, well, we'll just have you pre-book your 3 favorite rides, not actually make this better for everyone. And this whole idea of like, oh, we'll give you magic bands and stuff so that way you can spend your time shopping and walking around, but there's not enough room for everybody to shop and walk around because it's too small.
That's the killer part. If you take Epcot, World Showcase aside, you demolished half of, Communicore East and West. They're like that. Those when there was Interventions or Communicore that had people in them doing things that weren't. Now they have no place to go. It's like
your 30-minute ride, your 15 to 20-minute ride or 35-minute ride is now a 2-minute ride.
Exactly. And then on top of it, right. Because the Horizons was 15 minutes and now you're spinning for 6 minutes.
Yeah, World of Motion was like 15 minutes. Yeah. And now literally Test Track is 2.
And Universe of Energy was 46.
It felt like a decade, but it was 46.
Yeah. It was 46. But then on top of that, you also cut services. So for instance, people used to go to the land and eat all day. Oh, that's only open a portion of the time now. Now there's no reason to go down.
That's the word. Man, I forgot about that.
Right?
Going to, like, oh, I'm hungry. I'm in Future World. Let me pop into
nothing.
Into the land, and it's 6 o'clock. Everything's closed.
It's 6 o'clock. It's
you can only get a pastry or something from the pre-made cold case.
Yeah,
I will say, Connections, the quick service place they built there, food's very good in there.
Okay, I haven't tried it
it's always chaos, but the food is. It's food on the one side and the bakery and coffee cafe on the other.
I think that park has probably had the most capacity shrinkage from a standpoint of how you point out the ride times and the capacity of the rides, the number of shops and the number of eateries or places where people could sit. Hey, put some benches down. People might sit and that might help help it feel better.
Anything. And just this whole feeling of like, the attitude now of like, because I am pre-booking things, it's like I have to be here at this time. There were times, before in the 80s, it was like, okay, I have a restaurant reservation at 7. I got to be there for my restaurant reservation.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, you have to go from ride to ride to ride, and you have a number to hit, and I got to be there by 2. Like you can't just wander around and feel like
you've had a good day and it's comfortable. Right. In fact, one of the best days I had in the Magic Kingdom was just a few weeks ago. We were with the Miles family, and we said we ate
Not
dinner.
my family.
Not your family.
My Florida family.
Right, your Florida family. And we said, they have annual passes. I said, let's go in the park. We got there around, 7:30, 8. Even though Pirates shut down as we were approaching the boat, we got on 8 rides from 8 to 11. And it was fantastic. And we had a great time, no stress.
That was my experience the weekend I was there. It started to rain mid-afternoon, so we left the studios and hung out at the Wilderness Lodge for a few hours and showered and put on dry clothes. And when the rain tapered, we were back in Magic Kingdom about 8 o'clock, and we had an 8 to 10 run. I don't know, we went on 6 or 7 different things. It was great. And we got to walk on Peter Pan.
It's fantastic. So we are fortunate enough to be able to go down there and also experience that for the person going, how they're doing exactly what you're talking about as they're scheduling it. So I have a comment from all of this. We are, and a lot of the listeners, I don't want to use the word spoiled, but we are very much used to Disney when we're keeping track in our heads of how it's changed over the years. And you feel pain and concern and, or like WTF when certain things are changed and taken away. And I get it because we've experienced that from the parks and attractions and things. Some changes are for the better. And, we can all say, oh, it's not for us anymore and all that. The average person going down there does not know what has changed, right?
You're jumping to our benediction at the end of the episode.
Let me do my benediction.
Already,
we'll edit it. So the average person does not know what has changed. They're going to come down there and see a magical experience. Mom and dad are exhausted. They're not buying a bottle of wine because you've closed the sundry shop early. And if you do borrow a bottle of wine, it uses screw top, and you will pour it into the paper cups because the kids are in bed next to you, and the only place to drink it is in the bathroom, and you toast in it, right? Because otherwise you're going to wake them up. But nobody knows this. Nobody knows what the changes are. And the focus now has not become a resort experience. The resort is ancillary to the theme parks where, yes, you have a themed room and we're staying at the Polynesian and Moana's there, or we're staying at the Caribbean Beach. So I hear steel drums, or Mardi Gras. We took down half the floats, but nobody will know, half the decorations, but nobody will notice anyway. But we serve beignets to make it feel like that. The experiences are less and less and less, but they're enough to still maintain the people who don't know what's changed, the ambiance and the feel. And then the parks themselves have become a major, larger push now. And to them, everything you see is magic to them. And it's not magic to us anymore because we've seen it all change. Right. So I don't know what will be there in 20 years, maybe only half of what we are, but that's what I have to say. So.
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with that being in because we're transitioning out of the resorts for.
Yeah, but I don't know what you guys have to say about that. Is that true? Or
I agree with some of it. I mean, I don't feel pain.
No, I don't. I'm saying there are other people that do.
I've reached an age and a point in life where you get used to it. My age, things you like changing and closing and having to either deal with something the way that it is or just stop experiencing it. Yep. And I don't want to stop experiencing Walt Disney World. I have a lot of great memories there. There's still a lot of it that I love. I do recognize, Todd can quote me because I say it all the time. Mm-hmm. What do I always say?
I'm forgetting.
The parks are not
built for us. Right.
They're not built for us anymore. And when I say that, I invariably, someone on Twitter says, but they should be. Walt wanted them for everybody. And I get all that. And you know what? I recognize I'm an outlier. I'm an oddball. I'm someone who likes some of the older way they used to do things. Mm-hmm. But the younger families that go and, they're not looking for somebody to shine their shoes or cut their hair, or unless it's at the Main Street barber shop or the Bibbidi Bobbidi boutique for their kid. Don't
know if you heard, we're not shining shoes.
No more shines.
You're not even getting the kit in your room.
Yeah. So I am always aware of who the target audience is, and that is the seminal childhood trip.
Yeah.
That a family takes, sometimes more than once, or families that love it. And I'm aware that people with, kids and, 15 and under or whatever, they're in an age bracket that is younger than me now, which did not used to be the case. And their likes and dislikes and the way they consume media and the service that they expect at places is completely different from what I grew up with and what I'm used to. And so part of the idea of this show and is just to kind of talk about and tell people what used to be. You might be listening to it saying, well, I don't want any parts of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it will come through as a sense of annoyance, but it's not so much like, it's an annoyance, because it's more born of like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't get a glass in my room. And I get why they don't, because every time you check out, they then have to wash them and replace them with fresh ones. And they're washing glasses that were never used. And you certainly don't want to check into a room and have a glass that somebody used and nobody knows about. And there's a dirty glass in your room. Somebody cut. Like, I get all that. Like, it's a total different thing. Absolutely. But yeah, so that's sure, just kind of not a rebuttal, but my input on your take on it. I mean,
we can go back and forth. I agree with you. They're not for us anymore. And there are,
I'm agreeing with you, just in a nicer way.
Well, I'll be the not nice one, because I'll say, for the prices that they charge, they should absolutely still be giving you all of these services, because they charge you a premium cost in order to stay there. I have said it before, as much as I love Disney and staying in the hotels for the last decade, I have chosen, even when I'm going to Walt Disney World, even when we did Retro Magic one year, I stayed at the Lowe's hotels at Universal, because they still do many of the things that we have discussed at a price point that's still $100 or $200 cheaper at Disney at the same quality level.
And that's one of the reasons I've mentioned a couple times tonight that the Swan and Dolphin on Disney property, right in the
they do it right in the face.
Still doing a lot of these things.
Stay there, yeah.
They're still doing a lot of these things, and then right off Disney property in Bonnet Creek, and
some fantastic.
There's the Waldorf and the Four Seasons, and there's some really, really nice places. I remarked to my Disney loving friend who was with me on the we went from the Breakers to Orlando to the Wilderness Lodge. And by the way, we had a phenomenal room in the Wilderness Lodge. We were in Boulder Creek or whatever the first DVC is there. And we had a great corner room and a living room, it was great. I have no complaints about it. But I remember walking through the Breakers multiple times, telling her, this is what staying at the Grand Floridian should be like.
Yeah.
And it was when I was younger. That resort specifically is one, it doesn't make me angry as much as it's a point I like to argue with people who like it.
Yeah.
I want to challenge you to demand more from them. Because I don't expect when I'm staying at All-Star Sports for $109 or whatever that, someone's going to be coming in my room twice a night and giving me fresh glasses and things like that. I do expect when it's $600, $700, $800, $900 a night at the flagship resort to have the nice exclusive things that you should have.
Or a studio that has mini kitchens. You can't even get a glass.
They had a 12-piece orchestra that used to play in the lobby of the Grand Floridian all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one I didn't even have on the list because it's fresh. But yeah, there are just little things like that, that kind of, if you know what it was, you kind of say, boy, I wish they did. Yeah. Now there's stuff they do that's new that they think replaces some of that, and that's okay. But that's not what this show's about. This show's about looking back at services and experiences that were offered at one time that aren't anymore. Yep. And a lot of the ones we've listed, you recognize are so far are they're outdated. They're not necessary anymore.
Sure.
They're redundant. When we sound like cranky old men, it is simply because we came up in an era, from the founding era with Card Walker and Dick Nunes through the Eisner years, where just everybody and everything bent over backwards for you. And we all recognize that there was and certainly it got worse with social media. There was a segment of the populace of the park attendees that abused that and took advantage of it and took advantage of Disney bending over backwards for them. And that's why they don't do it anymore. I feel like we keep getting into these soliloquies ending the show. We're not really ending the show. But like it's if you're at home saying, what are you guys complaining? Like, we get it. Like, we totally get why some of this happens. But listen, when this era that we experienced for nearly 40 years of, this Disney was the can-do company. Like, you would go there and you marveled at how efficient everything was. To watch it for the last 10, 15 years just get chipped away at. That's what's frustrating. I hope I said that the right way.
Yeah.
I still love it, but I recognize it's different and not better.
I know we're burning midnight oil. JT his shoulders now become a pillow for him. So
we're recording episodes back to back tonight. Aren't we doing the next one now?
Okay, yeah.
Hopefully it's a little more cheery.
I think what we should do, gentlemen, is I think we're going to get some really great feedback. I'm sure there's a lot of different things that we missed that people would like to bring up and discuss. So I'm curious to see what the mailbag will be. But
Please don't send us attractions.
Yeah,
this isn't about. We know
right?
we all miss attractions.
So, but yeah, send us an email at podcast@retrodwdw.com if you have thoughts on anything that we missed, or if you want to.
Mississippi the Spoon Boy is who I miss.
I was going to say, I miss being able to ride in the front of a monorail. That was the greatest.
That was one of the things on your list. I forgot to.
Yeah. So there's going to be things we missed. Maybe we have a part 2 of this, and we'll back it off a little, and we'll just read everybody's comments. But Brian, thank you very much for putting this together. It was great.
Don't blame me. This was an ongoing conversation. I just organized.
That's true.
It.
That's true. We've had it was Brian created this channel in Slack a while ago, and it just kept getting fed with different things as we remembered and experienced.
Another thing,
no glasses for my wine, But again, as we said during the episode, a big thank you and well job done to all the cast members. A lot of what we're talking about, again, you're following orders and you are making it special, and there are bright shining moments that have happened for all of us and for other people.
Let me offer an olive branch out there. Here's an alternative that we could come up with, which are experiences that are not necessarily unique, but quaint, charming, maybe a little dated, that you can still do at Walt Disney World. And I'm thinking of things like the carriage rides at Fort Wilderness, and also at Port Orleans does them. So things like that, maybe we want to do a whole episode about those types of things.
That have survived the test of time. And
that have survived the test of time, or just kind of neat things that they do.
Chippendale.
I could mention that they don't do the flag family anymore on top of the Wilderness Lodge.
They still do the flag at Magic Kingdom.
At Magic Kingdom, they do, but they used to have a family of the day that would hoist the flag or take it down. I don't remember which. So I think they hoisted it in the morning, and they don't do that anymore.
But so write us. We will be back with another episode shortly, as always. If you can,
having a movie night. We're doing a movie night.
We got to do a movie night soon. Yeah,
summer movie night.
A lot of stuff. We'll do that. And if you can, give us a shout out on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. And if you're interested in any T-shirts, Hal will be making one, just grumpy old men with like old ticket books and things next to them, and a broken wax.
It's going to be a shoe shine and barbershop.
Yeah, getting a haircut and all that. But retrodwdw.com /
foreign translators call extension 9720.
retrodwdw.com / support us. And again, Retro Magic coming this September 27th and 28th. Retromagic.net. Get your tickets. And actually, while we were recording this, Hal, you said at the beginning there were only 2 tickets left for the Living Seas Pavilion, Living Seas Lounge dinner, there's one left. Somebody bought one ticket.
Oh, someone went stag. Wow.
Yes, somebody's going stag and somebody else is going to go stag. So there's one ticket left for that separate ticketed event. So get on it. With that, thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you and give you another episode soon. Thanks a lot. Brian, take us in.
Follow the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society on most social media platforms at LBV History and on the web at lbvhistory.org. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise and our digital film and image archive, visit us on the web at retrowdw.com and follow us on major social media platforms at RetroWDW. And follow our hosts, Todd McCartney on X at WDWMS, Hal Bowers on social media at GoAwayGreen, JT Kujar on X at LS1JT, on YouTube at Rubber City Motoring, and on the web at rubbercitymotoring.com. And you can find me on most major social media platforms at Brian P. Miles. Retro Disney World is the monthly podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society, a nonpartisan, nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 organization, and is not affiliated in any way with the Walt Disney Corporation or any of its subsidiary or affiliated entities.
You know the good old days weren't always good. Tomorrow ain't as bad as it seems. I told you my reasons for the whole revival. Now I'm going outside to have an ice cold beer in the shade. Oh, I'm gonna listen to my 45s. Ain't it wonderful to be alive when the rock and roll plays? Yeah, when the memories stay. Keeping the faith. I'm keeping the faith. Yes, you know I'm keeping the faith. Oh, yes, I am. You know I'm keeping the faith. Oh, you know I will. I'm keeping the faith.
We don't really hate everything, I swear.